Mama said don't talk to strangers. That's okay. We'll do it for you. Welcome to the Bar Talk Podcast, where we talk to interesting people doing interesting shit. We're bringing gifts.
That one's for you.
Wow. I have never smoked
a cigarette. Occasionally, I have nothing. There you go. That one's for you. Oh, thank you.
That'll be an occasion, Ben.
Good.
Maybe we'll have to pick like an anniversary of our show to smoke these. Like once we get to like so many episodes or something, without giving up.
Go with 10. You don't want to make them sit too long.
Yeah, I don't want to. No, exactly. I heard that to be in the top 1% of podcasts, you only have to put out 21 episodes.
I feel like
because most people
22
quit.
was the number, right?
I think most people quit like long before they get that far.
We already said we're going to celebrate when we hit that many episodes, right?
Yeah. People, if they don't get the Spotify deal, in like a few weeks, they usually quit. All right, let's cheers.
Cheers.
Ryan. Thank you, Ryan.
Beautiful. Ben? Cheers.
Thanks for coming in, man. Appreciate it.
Oh, man, thanks for having me. It's an honor.
Oh, well.
Pleasure.
Thank you.
It's wonderful to be invited. Thank you so much.
So how do we know each other?
How do we know each other?
Beer brings people together.
I think so. You opened up Roof Hound like a click
8 years ago.
A click from my woodlot, and it was strategically placed right in between the woodlot and my mom's place, and I was like, this can work.
Watering
I can make
hole.
this work. Yeah,
That's good.
yeah, it's perfect.
You're like you're one of these people that I don't remember meeting,
Oh,
but
man.
have always just been there.
I know. Yeah. Where did we meet?
Beer festival, maybe.
Yeah, maybe.
Probably
Yeah.
because you don't remember much from beer festivals.
No, I don't remember.
There's
I know
a
they
lot,
exist.
There's a lot of people like that I just seem to always have known, but don't remember meeting them, and probably met at a beer fest. Drunk.
Yeah, and then of course the common denominator is in Instagram. That's
Instagram,
how people get to know each other these days.
Yeah.
It seems like, but Anyway, I think it's super cool that you're doing this. It's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks. It's something I've wanted to do for a while, a couple of years, and the last few years with everything's been a little upside down.
Yeah.
But finally just said, just got to go for it.
Yeah.
Ben, my producer here, we best friends. We just said we just gotta bite the bullet and go for it. And then I decided we're going to actually spend time, energy, and money getting the studio ready.
Yeah.
That way, there's no chickening out.
Yeah, you really got to go for it, don't you? You have to put in
kinda
the
do.
quality, or
Yeah.
you're not going to have an
a
audience.
level of commitment.
Yeah.
If you're just taking a microphone at your kitchen table or
Yeah.
or whatever it is in life, wherever you set your goals, if you set them too low, sometimes I find it makes it easier to chicken out.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you go for quality too, it's something that you can look back on with a sense of pride, I think, and appreciate what you did, and whether it takes off or not really isn't it's not the end goal. It's about
the pride in it.
Yeah, and just appreciating the time that you put into it, and
Yeah.
recognizing how valuable your time is, and saying, okay, I did this, and
Yeah.
I'm glad I did it. I'm really glad I did
Yeah.
it, and I'm glad I did it right.
Right.
Yeah.
And we were just discussing that a minute ago, preparing for this. But first of all, tell everyone who you are and what you do, because probably people listening are probably like, okay, we're into the weeds already.
Yeah, that's all right. That's good.
Philosophy.
This is good. I like this. Though.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ryan McIntyre. I dabble in timber sports.
Timber sports, that's what they call it. Okay.
Yeah, so timber sports is like this kind of broad term. Lumberjack competitions is another term that people use. The West Coast, they call it logger sports. But basically, it's like racing with sharp shit. It's axes and saws and those sorts
all
of
those
things.
things
and then,
Mom told you not to do when you were a kid.
Oh, yeah. Oh, God, yeah. So many scars.
Yep.
It's this kind of broad, almost like a track and field event with really sharp things.
So you say you dabble, but I think you more than dabble.
Yeah, well, so I used to compete a lot. I used to compete. I started at the collegiate level. I was going to that's how I got introduced to it. I was going to the University of New Brunswick studying forestry. They had this timber sports club, the UNB Woodsman team, and it intrigued me and decided to, maybe I'll go try out for this and made the team. And then it kind of pulled me in and just grabbed me, and it's had a hold of me my entire life since, my entire adult life. But
so your adult life, you didn't do this kind of stuff when you were a kid?
I never heard of it.
Really?
No, until I was about 20, I guess. And but I played a lot of sports growing up, and I was crazy about baseball and hockey and basketball, things like that, the common sports. And went off and I kind of discovered this sport, which other athletic ventures, other sports that I was into, they seemed to come somewhat naturally growing up. When I found this one, it wasn't the case at all. It was incredibly difficult. I was really bad at it, which was humbling, but I think also good. I think it's good to jump into something that challenges you and takes you out of your comfort zone a bit. And so I think that was one of the reasons that maybe it hooked me. So I competed for 4 years at the university level. And then during
I had no idea that was a university.
I know. Who does? And there's like this Canadian circuit where Eastern Canada, there's teams at UNB, Maritime College of Forest Technology in Fredericton, also known as the Ranger School. The AC in Truro, the Agricultural College.
Well, that makes sense.
Dow, McGill has a team.
Really?
Sir Sanford Fleming in Ontario. So there's kind of this circuit, and you travel around and you go to different competitions as a team. So I was doing that a bit through college, and I was into it, but more it was just, I think, the culture and like the camaraderie of it. It was something I needed at the time. It was a lot of structure. Like we trained our guts out, like Monday to Friday, 2 hours every morning, outdoors from October to February, which I don't know if you know Fredericton at all. Cold. It is very cold in the wintertime. And so that just, kind of breeds and beats the character into you a little bit, I think. So it was good for me.
That's self-imposed suffering.
Yeah. And and it was a team thing. So, you kind of felt like you had to give it your all to, for the sake of the team. But later on, I got introduced to the sport at the kind of individual level, which is, working towards like, they call it professional level, but it's not like you do it as a profession. It's just high level, the higher levels, you start going to competitions and competing for prize money and things like that. And so I got introduced to that in BC. I was working in BC for a summer, and
it's probably big out there.
Huge, massive.
Yeah.
Well, there's
just like the trees.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I was working out in Vancouver Island, just amongst the mighty rainforest.
Yeah.
And I went to this competition in Squamish, British Columbia. I don't know if you've ever been to Squamish or not, but it's a beautiful place. But they have this insane custom-built amphitheater, 5,000 seats, outdoor, specifically and only for this one event, the Squamish Days Lager Sports Festival.
Wow.
It is incredible. And it's this 3-day thing, and they pack this place, 5,000 people.
Wow.
And I competed there in 2006, and that is what absolutely locked me in. I was like, this is what I want to do.
How'd you do?
Nuts. I had a great day there that day. I think that's probably the other reason. I competed in kind of a range of different events, but I remember specifically one thing that kind of stuck with me. I ended up in this event called the double buck. It's like 2-man sawing. So it's a big crosscut saw, 2 guys saw. But out there, everything's bigger in BC, of course.
Yeah.
And they had this huge log that was like 22 or 24-inch Douglas fir, which Doug fir is a very hard wood, a lot harder than what we saw here on the East Coast. And I partnered up with this guy who I'd never met, and sure enough, we freaking win this sawing event, which was a big thing. Like, it really, meant a lot.
You both from the East Coast?
Yeah, he was from the East Coast. Yeah, he was working up there too.
And you beat the locals on the West Coast.
Oh, man, we beat everybody. It was awesome.
They must have hated you.
Oh, yeah. It was great. It was fun. So we win this thing, and just I think it was like this, it's this eruption, right? There's thousands of people in the crowd, and, there's probably 6 or 8 teams going at a time. I don't remember exactly. And they call it a cookie when you cut a piece off the end of the log, and this cookie drops. And the whole crowd can see this. And when this hits the grass, the place just erupts. And it's like, all right, I'm in. This is it. I'm all in.
It's so funny
because
there's not many sports that have a practical application, right? It's like, if there's an apocalypse, if you have to choose between the badminton team coming to help you or the lumberjack guys, I'll take the guys that throw axes and chop down trees. Thank you very much.
That's right.
Badminton team, I'm sorry, no offense, but I can't see a practical use for that unless you're swatting flies, perhaps.
Flies,
Yeah.
You've got me thinking about it now.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think there's much. My son's girlfriend's a badminton player, so I'm talking a little bit of shit towards her.
That's good. This is good. It's
keep them on their toes. Yeah. So was there like a specialty event that you trained for right out of the gate?
Yeah, I did well in certain ones, and I did poorly in others. But that double buck always kind of locked. I did okay in that in the early years, and then started to kind of branch out into more the chopping, the racing with axes. Axe throwing was something that I kind of developed in. And
that's part of the games too.
Yeah, it is for sure at these bigger events all over the place. The Steel Timber Sports Series is a little bit different. That is and that's an event that I kind of eventually moved up into. It's sort of the pro series. You think like NASCAR series, Steel Timber Sports Series, that sort of thing. It's sort of like the top level in the sport. And so I eventually kind of achieved that level here in Canada at the national level anyway. I competed there for a few years. And that is more focused on 6 events. So there's 3 chopping, 3 sawing events, and basically everyone competes, and top guy walks away with the prize, and away you go. But
and they use chainsaws too, right?
Oh yeah. So there's 3 sawing events. One is supplied by Steel. It's a chainsaw. It's a 93cc chainsaw, off the shelf stock, but a big saw. And you pick it up on go, and you make 2 cuts through a 16-inch piece of pine, and fastest time wins. Are all races. Yeah. But they also have the hot saw, which people love this event. The hot saw.
I'm excited. I don't even know what it is.
The hot saw is insane, and I don't exactly know how to describe the feeling of running a hot saw, but I can tell you they are the loudest and craziest pieces of equipment you will ever put your hands on. They are old dirt bikes turned into chainsaws that spin at god-awful speeds.
Wow.
They're the most dangerous things you've ever touched. Very dangerous. But they're incredible. So you have an 18-inch log, 18-inch piece of white pine lathe turned. And the goal is basically you measure from the end of the log in 6 inches. And you have to make 3 complete cuts through that log on go as fast as you can with this saw. So, your hands are on top, they say go. You start the saw, which fingers crossed it starts. Doesn't always happen.
So are these machines self-built? Like you build your, it's like NASCAR, like you and your team build your.
So they don't exist anywhere.
Is there like regulations? Can you have like a V8 on it or something?
You could, yes.
You have to lift it.
Technically you could, but you'd have to be able to lift it. But the biggest saws now that people are running are around 380 to 400 cc's.
Okay, that's
like they're significant. They're heavy. I mean, they're 60, 70 pounds. These saws, maybe a little heavier, and they're about that in horsepower as well too. Spinning at, like I say, like 15,000 RPM or something. Like it's just nuts.
How did I not know this?
They're bananas, and they're so powerful. Like as soon as you start this thing up, like every time you give it a shot of gas, it just pushes you and pulls you, and you put it into the wood, and it sucks you into the wood, and it pushes you away. You have to wear cleats on your feet so that you're standing, so that you don't. It'll push you all over the place. They're absolute animals, but they're fun.
But kids don't try this at home.
Oh God, no.
No,
they are notorious.
Don't go putting blades on everything. We do not want to be responsible for that. These are.
I had a close call one time. I was training for nationals. It was the week before, and I had this saw that I'd only been running it for maybe 6 months. I'd bought it. So this was a what was it? RM250 Suzuki. So turned into a chainsaw, and saw ran great. But this one particular day, I did something. It was operator error. I fired it up. I made 1 cut down through the log, and when I went to come back up, because you have to go down and then up and then down. That's your 3 cuts, 3 complete discs. Which so many DQs for something going wrong. But anyway, so I put the 1 cut down, I go up for the next one, and I came in a bit too thin on the bottom of the log. And that chain is spinning so fast, it's actually, if you watch it in slow-mo, it actually comes off the bar. So it's just hovering. And if you don't hit that log perfectly straight, it'll come off the bar and whip around. And it can throw the chain, it can break a chain. It is just the absolute most insane thing. And anyway, this chain came off and whipped around, and it just brushed past my forearm. It left a bar oil stain from my wrist right up to my elbow. And I mean, and we're talking.
So you're wearing protective equipment on your arms?
No.
Just the hair of your arm.
Yeah, I'm telling you, it scared the shit out of me because it would have filleted my complete forearm, just taking it off. And
anyone sensible in your life would be like,
don't do that again.
Why would you put a chainsaw on a motorcycle and you're competing with this on TV?
Sometimes, yeah.
So there's probably times where they have to like cut to commercial.
I mean, I will say this, the guys that are doing it, They know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And yeah, that happened in training, and these close calls can happen. But in general, no. I mean, these are professionals. They're training this over and over. They know their saws. They know their equipment. They know the wood. So, no, the chances of those sorts of things are pretty low. But it can happen. I mean, and there's the risk of getting hurt with any of it.
Yeah.
Probably the least dangerous, honestly, and it's the one that people think is probably the most dangerous, is axe throwing. It's the least dangerous. Because if you think about it, like think about throwing darts. Yeah. It's the safest thing you can do as long as you're not standing in front of the dartboard.
Right. If you're the thrower, it's
you're good. Just don't try to catch the axe, just throw it. And so, I mean, it's super safe. You just, you're throwing at a target, it's 20 feet away.
There's been a craze the last, I don't know how many years, of like beer bars with axe throwing. And it seems a little bit counterintuitive, It's like, why don't we go have a drink and throw some sharp objects and just let amateurs who walk in do this? Like
it seems that way.
It seems that way.
They are very regulated, though, I will say.
Yes, they are. But it seems like a crazy idea.
It does, yeah. The concept.
Almost as crazy as putting a chainsaw on a motorcycle.
Yeah, I see. See, but it's, it all dials down to planning and execution.
But these are the people you want on your apocalypse team.
That's right.
The motorcycle chainsaw guy.
Yeah. Or the axe thrower. I mean, the thing is I would not be great in that apocalypse situation because I would be like, I need that zombie to like stand. Can you go just a little bit further back? No, right there.
I don't think they listen
20 feet. Okay. Can you squat down? Get your head at 5 feet. I got you. So
I got to stretch.
Yeah, that's right.
When we start getting this old, we need to stretch, huh?
That's it. Oh man.
So you started in university with no childhood experience. Did you ever try to cut down a tree when you were a kid with an axe? Because I remember doing that shit all the time. But I grew up in the woods.
Yeah, I kind of grew up in the woods too. Like we had the woodlot, like we were just talking about, out in North Range.
So that was like an old family.
Yeah, it was my grandfather's.
Oh, okay.
It was my dad's, and now it's mine. And I think going there as a kid and falling in love with the outdoors, that's ultimately what drew me to take a path in forestry.
Yeah.
And forestry was pursuing an education in forestry was what introduced me to the sport. So, they're all linked for sure. And there's, it's gray area between there. But, I mean, I think that even though I wasn't, running saws and things like that as a kid, once I got locked into it, especially the chopping events, that's really what hooks you, because it's just, there's really nothing like it. Like I said, I played a lot of baseball growing up, and it's just not the same feeling. There's nothing quite like it. It's a really grueling practice that just you can train and still have just the roughest day at a competition, but every once in a while things just go and they click and they go well, and I love doing it. And it's something that I'm so glad I found it, because I don't think anything else would have hooked me quite like this.
So is it a relatively new sport here? Like
no,
it's probably more developed in the West Coast, but is it relatively new?
It's been around. No, it's been around a long time. It's just typically these smaller, like outside of the Steel Timber Sports Series, you've got these kind of smaller local lumberjack competitions.
Okay, would they be at county
fairs?
And
Exactly.
stuff like that?
Yeah,
okay.
County fairs and
ox pull.
Yeah,
kind of stuff.
pretty much.
In
yeah.
Digby, so lobster
scallop
towns,
days.
Scallop days. They do scallop shucking and lobster trap throwing and stuff like that. Yeah, I guess every kind of community has their, they
have their thing.
Their thing.
Yeah. That's what it is. I mean, it's a connection to the old heritage way of doing things. It's a heritage sport that's over time, and definitely over the past, I'd say 10, 15 years, really taking off more globally with the investments from STIHL, the chainsaw company, and what they've been doing at the international level, and and then here in Canada with the television production side, which that's where I'm at now. Like I've stopped competing in the series, and now I just work on the broadcast side with the production, and which is really interesting.
I bet.
It's super interesting, and it shows you just how much goes into these events and to build them, and really baffling, honestly. I mean, I'm a hired gun. I just show up and talk.
People want to see some of the stuff you're talking about. So tell them your Instagram if you're
sharing. At Nova Lumberjack. I mean, I try to share anything that we're doing nationally for sure. So I was just a couple of weeks ago, we were in Truro. We're hosting the Canadian Championships for the rookie division. So that's basically competitors, most of them coming out of the collegiate circuit. Anybody under 25 years old kind of competes in that rookie division. It's sort of like a feeder system for the pros.
Okay.
And so we hosted the national championships in Truro, and that was all live streamed. You can watch it on YouTube through Steel Timber Sports, and eventually, took off, and people really grabbed onto that, and here we go. We're off to Kelowna, BC, in August to host the men's and women's pro divisions nationals. So. Yeah, it's big. And it gets a big following. The Kelowna show will be good. That'll be an indoor arena show.
And you work with TSN, right?
Kind of. So basically, the way it works is, STIHL has a contract to produce so many episodes a year, and they just bring me in as a host basically. So come in for a weekend or two and film some events, and then those events get produced into a season. But on the side, unrelated to that, I'm building. With my business partner, Darren Hudson, who owns the Timber Lounge in Halifax, or Dartmouth, I should say, and Moncton, the axe throwing bars. Yeah. We're producing our own television series for TSN, which is the Wild Axe Championships. It's an axe throwing television series that is, built from scratch. We're building it from the ground up. It's like nothing else that's out there, and we're just plugging away at that right now, which is pretty neat. Like in that one there, it's like we have our own agreement with TSN. Like we have our names on an agreement with the head guy from TSN. Very cool. Like I was like, oh my God, should I frame this thing? Like this is nuts. What is going on here?
You didn't expect that for somebody to pick up a saw.
Oh, it's bananas.
Chopping wood and
I don't know. One thing leads to another.
A TV star.
Yeah, right. Yeah. It's one thing leads to another though. I think it's just saying yes to opportunities and
put it in the work.
And
discipline.
Yeah, for sure.
Following your passion.
I think that's it.
You never know what happens.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes you just kind of. I don't attribute much to luck, but I do think sometimes you have to be willing to chase something that you're really passionate about, like you said, and say yes when the opportunity presents itself. There's always going to be reasons to say no. There's always reasons to say no. But if you say yes, often you can make something happen. Like I'll tell you, none of this would have happened, honestly. So fall of 2015, I reached out to the guy who was running Steel Timber Sports at the time, and I wasn't in the series yet. I hadn't competed there. I've been competing in the pro series here in the Maritime Circuit, but I hadn't made it to the national level yet. And I reached out to him and I said, "Hey, like I'm striving to get to the pro level at Steel Timber Sports. I hope you'll consider me for a spot down the road." And he said, "All right, I'll keep your name on hand." So in between that message and a month later, I blew a disc out my back. Needed immediate surgery. I was all laid up, getting around with a cane. They go in, they trim. It's a micro discectomy. I learned all about that. They go in through it was L4, L5. They go in, they trim off the piece of the disc that's blown out, and
they didn't fuse anything.
No, thank God. That's a way worse recovery.
Be doing what you're doing then.
Oh yeah, exactly. No, I lucked out that way, but I waited too long, quite honestly, to see a doctor and came out with some bit of nerve damage. But
typical man.
Yeah, truthfully, it was just arrogance and stupidity.
Male ego gets us in trouble sometimes.
Exactly. Yeah. So stupid. But anyway, so that happens. I didn't really tell that many people. I was pretty hobbled. I was walking around with a cane for a little bit. So I go in, I get this surgery in February. The week after the surgery, I'm laying on the couch and I get an email from the guy that I'd messaged 4 months ago at Steel. He's like, "Hey, we got an open spot at Nationals. A guy dropped out. Do you want it?" And I'm laying on the couch recovering from surgery. I'm like, "Yes, I'll take it." So he doesn't know at this point. Nobody really knows that I'm laid up with a back surgery. But I was like, fuck it, this'll. I don't know if I can swear on this, but I said, I'm going to make this work. And so, truthfully, again, it kind of forced a speedy recovery that probably should have taken a little longer, but whatever. Rolled with it. July of that year, I'm competing at the national championships in London, Ontario, and that led to conversations about the broadcast side, and that led to more and more things, and one thing leads to another, like I say. So that would have been a great reason to say no.
Yeah.
And I think often we look at the reasons to say no first instead of the reasons to say yes first. Yeah. And
it all started because you're just following your passion.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's the same thing. I was working on a family farm, wasn't going great. Farming was going down. I just loved to cook and brew. And I just cooked and brewed and put it on Instagram. And next thing you know, I'm on MasterChef Canada.
Yes.
And now I'm in the food business. And all this, like it just, you never know.
So
Never know.
I'm super curious about that whole process. So like how did you get pulled into the Master Chef side?
Well, my goal was to start the brewing company. And like I said, the farming wasn't going well. So I knew I needed some kind of a lifeboat here, right? Like we had a lot of bad years. And the only other thing I knew how to do is kind of cook and brew. I had no idea how hard the industry was. Stupid me, I didn't know. Coming out of farming kind of prepared me for it though. And then I had like a bunch of friends. One in particular, my cousin's wife, just kept hounding me. She kept messaging and calling me. She said, they're saying on the radio they need applicants for MasterChef Canada. Been following your stuff on Instagram and Facebook. You just need to apply. And I was putting my kid to bed one night. I'm like, I ain't got time for this. Because I was like, I had a goal in mind. Like I wanted to start a brewing company in a restaurant. I really had never even watched MasterChef, honestly.
Right.
Yeah. So then I'm like, all right. I remember I put my youngest to bed and I went and I started a little video application, sent it off, didn't think much about it. And they just kept calling and saying, you're into the next round. And went to Halifax, did the audition, went to Toronto. And it's like, I'm like, I almost thought about not doing it because I thought it was going to like be a distraction from where I was going, but ended up being an opportunity and take it. And you never know. Here you are. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's wild.
That's it. It's recognizing when that's in front of you.
Yeah. But it wouldn't have happened if I hadn't put the time in without even
you had
knowing.
To ask.
Yeah.
You had to ask for it.
You had to put the time in with your craft, make the dishes, make the beer, take the photos, upload them, interact with people, build the following. You know, I didn't know where that was going to go. I kind of knew where it was going to go, but I didn't think it was going to take me there.
Yeah.
Yeah. End up on a show with 1.8 million viewers and then crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And the bank loved to hear that when you're going to financing, right?
That's it, yeah. You may know me.
I still had no idea what I was doing. I still had no idea what I was doing. Like so naive to think you could run a restaurant and a brewing company, open them on the same day, having no experience. I mean, all I had done before was feed animals on a farm.
Yeah.
Right. And here I am opening a restaurant. But 8 years later, against all the odds, we're still here.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think most restaurants fail within 5 years, and that's when they do have experience.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. But find a passion, pour yourself into it, chase those opportunities.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, to that end, like, you know, like I said, like I think recognizing when it's something you want and being willing to like put yourself out there and saying, I want to do this. You know, and you can't do it alone either. You need you need connections, but you need avenues and friends and family supporting you and all those things. But I mean, so going back to, this Wild Axe Championship show that we're doing right now, Darren and I, that wouldn't have happened had we not busted our asses in 2022. We hosted the World Championships for axe throwing in Barrington, Nova Scotia. All places. Yeah.
Barrington, World Championships.
I know.
Cool.
And this is like this hub for the sport and axe throwing and everything. And we brought 120 competitors from 10 countries to compete. We filled an arena for 3 days. We had like 5,000 spectators over that period of time. And these are paying customers. These are people that are paying to come and see this event.
Amazing.
We filmed it and produced it for TSN. We did there was like a 3-episode series. And because we put all that work in, and I'm telling you, it was draining. It was like 2.5 years of planning to deliver this one, weekend event. But because we did that and really put our heart and soul into it, none of us got paid. We're all volunteers. We wanted to do it right. We had the opportunity, like Canada had the opportunity to host that event. It's every 2 years, and this was the first time Canada was hosting it. Maybe the last time, possibly.
Yeah. Especially if you blow it.
Yeah, no kidding. Yeah. So we really wanted to deliver it like the best we could and the best that the world had ever seen. Like I stand by that statement that event was the best axe throwing event the world's ever seen.
It's awesome.
And because we did that, the folks at the network came to me the next spring and said, like, the show's doing really well. What's next? Like, what do you have next for us? Wow. And so Darren and I sat down and we're like, holy shit, okay, well, it's not going to be the World Championships. It's off to England now. It's happening this August in England, actually. And we said, well, and we started pitching ideas and kind of going back and forth with them. And we landed on this idea of an East Coast versus West Coast event, 5-on-5 tournament. So that's what we're doing in Dartmouth in September. And
awesome.
And it's it's really building. Like it's a pretty cool thing. We just went through like all these auditions. We just announced this week Team East Coast, And
It's so crazy, huh?
It's wild.
You just put yourself out there.
Yeah.
And sometimes if you're on the leading, often I find if you're on the leading edge of things, opportunities just come up.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they see you as like a point of contact for something interesting, something different. And I think with that network, for example, I mean, they're always looking for good Canadian content, and it's kind of neat the way they do it in a way. Like, I think people often think like, oh, you're making a show for TSN, they must be like paying you all kinds of money. That's not the way it works. Not these days anyway. Basically,
not as much money in television as it used to be.
No, exactly.
Yeah.
And basically they're going to come to you in most cases, especially with something new like we're doing, which is really a concept. They basically come to you and say, okay, we'll give you so much advertising space on our network to go with your show. We'll guarantee you to air it X number of times. Like, they're going to air our shows 30 times minimum, and could be more. And that's like up from like 12 times on the World Championships. So, all these things, they build up. But basically, that's how we end up funding the project. We say, okay, well, we'll take that ad space and we'll reach out to various partners and sell ad space on TSN. And then, and they put commercials on. Like, we partnered. So, and we did that for the World Championships. Like, you'll appreciate this. Like, Boxing Rock had an ad on TSN because of our event. Like, it's really cool.
Yeah.
So, so it's a neat way to, support local businesses and like give them a national stage that really, where else are you going to get that?
Right.
Like, you're not going to call up and be on the Stanley Cup playoffs, right? Or probably not, unless you've got millions of dollars. But like, we have this crazy platform and avenue that we're now. Where we can promote businesses, and like this is kind of cool too. We partnered with this organization through one of our executive producers, Soli Short, she's this amazing driven woman out of Halifax, originally from the Caribbean, but she's to be a model, and now she runs this modeling agency, and she's all about like promoting artists in Halifax and really doing amazing stuff. She joined our production team, and mostly to help with casting originally, but realized like, oh my God, she's brilliant. Like, we really got to bring her on. She's part of the whole project. And so she links us up with a nonprofit that she's involved with, the Union of Black Artists Society. They come on, and now we've got this platform where we're like promoting black artists and filmmakers and musicians and actors and models. Like, it's really crazy that Darren and I wouldn't have been able to do that ourselves, but because of her and her connections and the union, like, it's really one. Like I say, how one thing leads to another. Like, you just
people who are hustling attract other people who are
that's
hustling, and there's a synergy and there's an energy. That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, and that's something I want to come out of this podcast. Is I interview a lot of people who are just taking like an interest or a hobby and often can turn it into a career. Yeah. Like Jeremy from Tide and Timber, episode 1.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
It's super cool.
Or like Lindsay Tupper, the dog trainer, just take an interest in dogs, and now she's making has her own company, making a great living, doing what she loves. And there's a lot of people out there that, work in minimum wage jobs. Minimum wage doesn't go very far these days.
No.
Doing a job maybe they hate and are miserable about it, but there's something that they're passionate about. And like, it might take you a decade. Because I brewed in my basement for many, many years before I got to get there. And when you get there, it's not easy.
No.
Right? It's not easy. It's a constant hustle, especially when you're working for yourself. But I want to see people have the courage from some of the stories we're telling to jump out on their own and try something that's terrifying and exciting, and
it's totally worth it.
Totally worth it.
Yeah.
And to say yes to things, right?
Yeah, say yes to things.
That's a big deal. I think a lot of people need to hear that. Like, you just have to, sometimes it is just, you have to say yes and not listen to the reasons to say no. Because like you said, there's always reasons to say no to everything.
Yeah.
And yes will scare the shit out of you.
And you don't know what you're
definitely
doing.
will.
Like, you're laying on the bed, on the couch with a bad back, have no idea how you're going to do it. We jump into doing a podcast, have no idea what we're doing. Yeah. Open a brewing company, still don't. You figure it out as you go. That's exciting. Man,
God, speaking of getting outside of your comfort zone, so I'm not a hunter. I'm all about ethical hunting and full force, but it's just not something I've ever really been into. So the guy he produced the World Championships for us for TSN. He produces all the Steel Timber Sports series. His name's Taylor Wright. He has a television series called The Canadian Tradition. A few years back, he reaches out. He's like, hey, we're like STIHL is one of our show sponsors. We want to cross promote. And at the time I was competing. I was one of the athletes in the series. Why don't you come on our show and go for a hunt? And I was like, I said, listen, I appreciate the offer. That's really nice of you, but it's not my thing. And it's all good. Let's leave it at that.
You said no.
Right. So I know. Now, thankfully for me, he's a pretty persuasive guy. So a few weeks go by and he calls up again. And then the guy from STIHL calls up and they're like, listen. He said, listen, I'll frame the show around, like the episode around, like teaching you about it. Like, I'm not, we're not going to embarrass you. It's not about that. Because it is, it's a very, like, I don't know anything really about hunting. And it's a bow hunt, so like a crossbow. But still, it's a bow. It's a very, intricate thing. And I'm like, okay, all right, let's do it. And one of the reasons I went, I really thought about like all my friends and family and my dad who had, he passed away when I was a teenager. And I really thought about him in that moment about, if someone reached out to him or anybody that's an outdoorsman that enjoys hunting, fishing, whatever, and said like, I'm going to give you a guided hunt and take you to a place. We're going to fly you there. You're going to see an amazing spot you've never been to and go on the side. I thought like, man, they would freaking smack me if I said no to this. So I just said, all right, let's do it. Yes. Yeah. So they fly me out for this hunt. And sure enough, it was like this amazing experience. I got to harvest an 8-point buck. Wow. And
clearly you didn't know what you're doing.
Yeah, well, he took me to a pretty good spot. Like, it's pretty good. I think, it was good. But it was incredible. And again, like, had I said no, which I did originally, full credit to him and his team. Like, I'm so glad that they convinced me because, I was really nervous. And, like, I'll be honest, I was nervous to come on here, right? Like, I was sitting in the parking lot. It's funny. I was just thinking about this. I was kind of like I'm anxious to go, and talk about stuff I like talking about, but it felt like I was going into a job interview. Oh.
Even if there was no mics and stuff here, you and I would probably sit
these are
and drink beer.
Three strengths and
talk
three
about
weaknesses.
The same things, right? Probably do the exact same thing given the opportunity.
I know, which is, But it's funny, like, I think it's always easier to say no. Mm-hmm. It's so much easier to say no and come up with excuses. And
it's ego.
Yeah, there is, and not being afraid to look bad or being afraid to embarrass yourself.
Right, that's the thing. It's our ego. We're scared you're scared to embarrass yourselves. Yeah. You come from a world where you excel at what you're doing, and then you got invited to do something where you weren't so sure, and it's scary.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's
But that's where growth happens.
100.
That's where the growth happens. Jumping into shit you know nothing about.
Yeah, I knew nothing about television.
It's so good to humble yourself and try something new.
I knew nothing about it.
I've never television.
I've had no broadcast experience. I watched professional wrestling when I was a child, a lot, and I was like, all right, I'm just going to draw from this.
There's production value.
Yeah, Jim Ross and
but that's
Bobby the Brain.
I mean, how you just got to get those neurons firing sometimes, because if somebody else can learn it, you can learn it too. It's the theory, right?
That's about all this stuff. It's all been made up.
Somebody's done it. Yes. Somebody else, and they were a person too. They had the same tools that we have.
It's all about confidence. It's all a con game.
Yeah,
that's true.
Fake it really is. It's all a con game. It's all about
just even being recorded.
It's not always. Well, they say it's not always like the person who's the most intelligent. It's the person who just has a little bit of fuck it.
But also, like if you have the confidence, then other people will have the confidence in you, and then everything can kind of build from there. If you tell people, "Oh, I don't know what I'm doing," then nobody's going to think.
Right.
You don't know who you're inspiring either.
Sometimes
right? That's
being
a little one leads to another. Yeah.
Sometimes being a little bit naive is good for you too, because you don't know how complicated it is.
Don't know what you don't know.
You don't know what you don't know, and sometimes that's enough to get you to be silly enough to jump in and start.
Yeah.
Because if I could, knowing what I know now about the restaurant business, I wouldn't open another restaurant.
Right.
Sometimes being a little bit naive helps you to jump in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. I think it's good to.
But you grow.
Yeah.
Yeah. You get your ass handed to you a little bit.
Then
you have that stubbornness where you don't want to quit, and the resilience, and doing something like that. It like builds your character more than anything, and failing builds your character more than anything. Don't be afraid to fail, because it's an education all on its own.
Like that, like going back to the, timber sports or axe throwing, that is all basically failing, pretty much. And every once in a while things click and you win a race or something. But in general, you're mostly losing.
Yeah, it's good.
And you've got to know that going in. Like,
and be
so
cool about
I'm going to go. So this August, I'm traveling to the UK. I'm going to England for the World Championships for axe. I'm going to go compete. I brought a couple of props actually.
Props?
Yeah. You want to take a look? All right.
Yeah.
I'll take my headset up.
I'll hand it to you.
Okay. So I'll be off to England to compete at the World Championships. It's the third time I've gone. And this is the first time I've gone. I went to Germany in 2017. I went to Sweden in 2019. Both of those times I went with pretty high expectations of myself, and both times I failed spectacularly. This time I'm really, I've taken about 5 years off from competing in axe throwing, and so this time I'm really just taking a better, I think a different mentality, and it's more just about like enjoying the moment, enjoying the process, and the results will be what they'll be. So this is a double bit throwing axe. So this,
wow,
it's
that's bad news.
Beautiful.
Yeah, so this is a wild axe dragon. They're actually manufactured by my buddy Darren, the guy I was talking about before. So it's the specs on this are basically the handle has to be so long, the bits can only be so big, and the weight has to be a minimum. So this handle is probably roughly 30 inches long. Those bits are just shorter than 6 inches. They can't be bigger than 6 inches. Mm-hmm. Hopefully you can see it on the camera, right?
6 inches from center.
No, 6 inches like that.
Okay.
So the edge of an axe is known as a bit. Wow. So this has 2 bits, so it's a double bitted axe. Wow. So this particular one, it's so these are less than 6 inches. Handle's so long and it weighs roughly 2.5 pounds. So you can lift that if you want. And there's a sticker on here. I also have a Mayflower that I drew on that's a classic kind of Nova Scotia. It's a Nova Scotia provincial flower. So I drew that on. I just came back. There's a American flag on there. I just came back from the U.S. Championships in Richmond about a month ago. I competed down there and had a great time. Some awesome people. So that's a throwing axe. So that's only used for competitive axe throwing. That's it.
That's it.
Yep.
You wouldn't chop a tree.
No, I mean you could with that one, but I never would because I have another tool for that.
Imagine you have a bunch in your tickle
So
truck.
this is a little different. This is a competitive racing axe.
Okay, for people, Ben giggles every time you pull something out of that bag.
Yeah, I'm not pulling much more out. So this is so this one is extremely sharp. So if I hand it over to you, just be really careful with it. So this is a bit bigger, a bit heavier. They're roughly 5 to 6 pounds. So it's like a splitting maul in weight. The edge of the axe is typically somewhere between 7 and 8 inches. So the bit, and you typically, I mean, you're gonna pay anywhere from, for an axe like this, brand new. This isn't brand new. An axe like this, to get this, they basically come out of New Zealand. Pretty much, they come New Zealand, Australia, but that's about it. A couple of the states,
really?
But pretty much to get one of these axes, you're probably gonna put it in order and wait 4 to 6 months for it to come. They'll custom make it. They're forged, and they will cost you anywhere from $800 to $1,000 for one. And the biggest difference between that axe, of which you need one of, and this axe, is you need an axe box full of these. Because every axe, here you can lift that if you like.
Yeah, this is much heavier.
Yeah, it is much heavier.
It looks heavy.
So
is that wedge made out of steel? The wedge in the
they can be either or, but I can't see it from right here. Yep, that one's steel. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So probably aluminum. So these axes basically, they are made specifically for certain, or they're ground. They have a grind on the end. They cut certain types of wood. Oh, yeah. So that particular axe is good for cutting aspen.
Oh, wow.
And a specific type of aspen.
So like you'll have a different edge geometry for harder woods?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. The thinner, that's bang on. So a thinner axe is good for cutting really soft wood. A thicker, blunter axe is for harder woods.
Kind of like you do with chisels, right?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
It's exact same concept, except you're swinging this at full force, between your feet.
Ben used to work in a high-end hardware store in London.
Oh,
so
okay.
Knows some of that stuff, yeah.
Okay, all right. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, at my peak, I had 2 axe boxes full of these. And and to go to a big competition, you kind of have to sort like, okay, well, what are we chopping? What's the wood? Okay, it's pine. All right, well, these axes tend to chop pine better, but if it's firmer pine, I want this one. And then, so you'd have to sort them all out. And then, oh my God, the stress of flying with axes. Oh my God. You think losing your luggage is bad. You wait. I've seen guys, I've been pretty fortunate flying with axes. I've had guys, no joke, it's come out of the conveyor belt and all the axes just come sliding down individually and smashing into the thing. And like they're all chipped and like you damage these and you're toast, right?
So they like open them up to check them out?
Oh yeah, they like doing that. Yeah, they like having a good look.
Not understand.
No, I'm sure. I would like to see. I'm certain there's a few guys and girls in the back of these places with like cut fingers and things because they probably touch the edge or whatever. It's
Yeah.
but you can shave with that. Like to test the edge when you're about ready to chop, right before a chop, you'd finish it up with like a honing stone, really high end, really hard stones to finish it.
Because you're
and then you would,
competing with like seconds, right?
Oh yeah, I mean, so typically, if you're looking at, and the diameter of the wood changes at competitions, but let's say you're chopping through like a 12-inch diameter log, they're about 30 inches tall. So you cut halfway through one side, halfway through the other, whether you're either standing on top of it or it's next to you. And if it's really good wood, like really soft, and you're cutting with the right axe, you know what you're doing. You could get through that. I wouldn't necessarily get through it in this time, but like a top guy could get through a log that size in like 15 seconds.
Wow.
Which is not a lot slower than a saw, like a chainsaw.
Yeah.
You can
It's like a bit more effort, maybe.
A bit more effort, yeah.
It's like you and I Instagram friend stuff, and we discussed about having you on the show. And I called up Ben one day, and I was like, okay, we're gonna have this lumberjack guy on the show, and I said, and you have to watch this Instagram post. And I showed him the post of you just up the roof of my place.
I'll make it here in the beam.
Something like this. Yeah. You took down a 12-inch tree.
Yeah.
And I think we counted them. It was like 9 chops.
Yeah.
12-inch tree.
I cut a front into it first that you didn't see, but
you sneaky fucker. Because we were going to, I was like, I wonder how long it would take us. Because I have like this cheap Canadian Tire axe.
Oh,
right?
God, don't use
And
that.
we were going to go find like a 12-inch tree and see how long it would take me. Because like the
Should.
last tree I cut down with an axe, I was a kid.
Yeah.
We'd build little forts and stuff like that. Yeah. But like that was impressive.
Oh, thanks. That was a really cool project for me, actually. So that is so that's on that same piece of woodland that really like locked me into the forest in the first place. And it's kind of neat because so I went there on a very special day. It was the 20th anniversary of my dad's passing, and I went out there and I just spent time in the woods by myself. I took an axe and that was it. And I cut that tree and I turned it into a beam all in one go. Like I hewed it. And I'd never done any hand hewing, but I had spent so much time over the years swinging axes, and a lot of the skills that are derived in timber sports came from those exact things.
Right.
So I was like reverse engineering the old lumberjack, moments of the past, right?
The heritage of it.
Yeah. So I just had a really strong connection to the land that day. I cut that tree, felled it, turned it into a beam. And it was really, it was just all about connecting with like the memory of my dad. My grandfather too, that was his land and as well. And like they walked that land, they had maybe walked right past that tree. And so to kind of turn it into something, and it's been seasoning ever since then actually, but I now finally have a plan for it. And there's this old tractor on the lot it was my grandfather's, and we talked about like rigging up old pieces of equipment. Well, this was basically an old dually truck frame that he had built like a wooden box and framed all over it, and then he used to like use it as a forwarder. Basically, he hauled logs out of the woods on the woodlot years ago. It doesn't run anymore. It hasn't run in like 30 years, but it's all rusted and just kind of sitting there. But I'm gonna turn into, you appreciate this, but I'm gonna turn the engine block's wide open. It's just like metal frame around it because everything's rotted away. And I'm going to turn that into like a tabletop and have a little picnic spot there.
Cool.
And the beam is going to have a couple of posts over top with I'm hitting your legs.
Okay.
A couple of posts on either end, and then the beam will go across, and it'll be a little covered area that you can go and like have a little, picnic lunch or whatever if you're in the bush, and that beam is going to hang over top, and then there'll be a sign that hangs from
Beautiful.
it. Yeah. So I finally have a little bit of I have this use for it that I didn't know where it was going to go.
Yeah.
It was one of those moments to say yes, just try something. I wanted to do it, and I was like, I've never hewed everything or anything, so why the hell not?
That's so cool.
What's the worst that can happen? Well, I could get maimed or crushed, I guess, or die, but that didn't happen. It didn't.
Exactly, yeah.
Be a more interesting, you probably get more views on that Instagram post.
yeah. And that's what it's all about.
Beyond that morbid curiosity post there. Well, that's pretty cool. Like just
you have to come see it.
Yeah, I would love to. Yeah. Just up the road from there, like my dad bought property probably 20 some years ago, and there was a couple old houses on that property that had those hand hewn beams.
So cool.
Yeah, and when we were renovating them, they hadn't been renovated in forever. So we're taking down all this old plaster and stuff, and we find these hand chopped beams. You can see the axe marks in them, right? And the Roman numerals where they carve in to match up all the joints. And
so
stuff.
crazy.
So crazy. And like, there's no way I can cover these now.
No.
So what we did, just, work around it, put the gyprock between them, expose the beams, so you can see that kind of workmanship. Because somebody spent days.
Oh my
doing
God,
this
days
stuff.
easily, and
by hand, no laser levels, no machines, no hydraulics. They're doing that
so
shit
cool.
by hand. Yeah, these homes are like a couple hundred years old.
I really appreciated like going through that whole process, and it's funny, but it didn't take all that long. Like the videos that are on there, I kind of showed step by step how it went, and it took like a couple hours, two and a half, maybe 2.5 hours or so to like start from cutting the tree and felling it to kind of climbing over it and all that. And I eyeballed it. So I mean, it's it's rough and it's not perfectly level, and there's a lot of hard marks in it, and it's not going to be a countertop, but I kind of wanted it rough to show that character and to make it very clear, like, this is how this was made. And the other thing too is I didn't use there's a very specific type of axe called a broad axe that you can use for hand hewing. But I didn't do that. I actually used an axe just like this, and it was my old training axe that I used to use all the time. I still have it. And so I just used that, and because I'm really comfortable with it. I knew the handle, like I have this connection. So it was kind of cool because I've been using this axe for years to train for timber sports. I'm no longer doing timber sports, and now I'm using it to like make something real and tangible. Like you said, like it's a practical skill, kind of. I mean, like, you're not going to do that every freaking day, but... No. It's kind of cool to be able to do that. I'm super proud of that. It meant a lot, cool. and still does. So yeah,
it's awesome. I mean, I'm sure the early pioneers that were doing that did not have a plethora of $1,000 axes. Right,
like they had different edge geometry.
They had one axe, and that was what they used. I mean, it's impressive. The people that arrived here and just made a. I mean, because that's shelter. Yeah. That's very, very important.
Oh, yeah.
You got to have shelter.
That's
and when
you
land here and there's no Home Depot, a couple hundred years
you are
ago.
Home Depot.
You are a Home Depot. You and your axe and your back has to be, if your back doesn't hold up, there's no hospital.
No.
There's no chiropractor. There's no surgery.
You got to have a lot of technique then, actually, because you can't mess around. You got to because you can hurt yourself if you have the improper technique,
God,
I'm sure, right?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
And your life depends on it. Getting that shelter up and having a place for your family, and you know what I mean.
If you try and go too fast, you'll hurt yourself, right?
Yeah. Or don't look after yourself.
Yeah, don't look after yourself, and that's
I think it's so cool that there's a sport now that celebrates this old tradition.
Yeah.
And we were saying earlier, like it's kind of like this reoccurring fascination with some of these ancient things.
Homesteading.
And making sourdough during the pandemic and people planting gardens.
Mm-hmm. Going back to the old ways.
Yeah, it seems like the pendulum is coming back where we realize, especially during the pandemic, that supply chains aren't always there.
Yep.
The grocery store didn't always have meat or toilet paper.
Or you
go to the hardware store and there's no 2x4s. Remember that?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
How much a 2x4 cost during the pandemic?
Oh yeah, that was They were either they didn't have them or they were just like $18 or something.
Yeah, I remember I bought a few 12-foot 2x4s and had them under the cabin in my son's birthday party. His 18th birthday party, and the kids were out there running to firewood, started burning my 12-foot 2x4s. When they were like $18 a piece, I like shut that shit down. But like this, we never know. We never really know when the supply chain is gonna just not be there.
No,
and I think there's this instinct in people's brains to say, I want to feel more capable. I want to feel more secure.
I think that's it.
And this is a very practical sport.
Consumer culture also, you realize you're making some other dickhead rich, right?
A little more DIY. It doesn't really hurt us. And if nothing else, it gives us an appreciation for what our grandparents went through.
Yeah.
My grandmother passed away probably 6 years ago or so. I mean, she grew up very poor, and then she became quite wealthy and traveled the world. And, I'm the food guy in the family. She had, 20 grandkids, so I'm trying, having moments with her before she passes away. And I said, Graham, what was like the best meal you ever had? She's laying in her hospital bed, and I thought, she had traveled to Africa and Australia. She traveled all this. She goes, oh, that's easy. She said, when I was a little girl, we'd have the eggs and we'd hatch them, and I'd look after these chickens, protect them, clean up after them, and then in the fall we'd kill them, we'd pluck them, and we'd can the chicken meat,
like
in jars. and shit. Every Sunday night we'd go to the cupboard. I'd go to the cupboard and get this jar of chicken meat that I had raised from an egg, and we'd make cream chicken on toast, and that was our Sunday night. She goes, that was the best chicken I've ever had, because it was work put into it. Right. It was like that connection. Like, you look after this, but if it's just a chicken nugget you pick up from the grocery store, you throw that shit away.
Yeah.
You know, you maybe cook a few more. Yeah. And I think people had more appreciation for things when they had to put more work into it.
Yeah.
And it probably wasn't the best tasting chicken she'd ever had, but it was the one that she had the most pride in and connection with, and it was a family bonding thing with her parents and all that stuff. So I mean, I think there's a lot of beauty in that, doing things the hard way.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Because you could have gone to the store or gone to a sawmill and say, just cut me a bean.
Yeah, cut me a bean. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. No, you're.
And it wouldn't have the same. I mean, and I didn't know when I saw the post that was a 3-generation connection with that, and it was like this meaningful thing. But like, that's beautiful.
Yeah, it's. You're absolutely right, though. I mean, do you garden?
Yeah.
Did you garden?
Just recently, though.
Yeah,
I didn't give a shit before.
Yeah, listen.
Now I have a grandson. I'm growing pumpkins for him, and I'm very excited.
That's great.
Yeah, old man shit.
I used to love. So I'm not. I don't have any gardens going right now, but in the past I always gardened a lot, and something I always appreciated was just growing my own potatoes. Like, it's one of the simplest crops you can grow, and they taste amazing, and they're super easy to grow, and you're just like, I did that, and they store well, and it's like I always had this connect, and it's one of those crops you don't have to weed a lot, so that's kind of nice too.
Nice, yeah.
Hill them a couple times and away you go. But I think that's it too. And I used to have chickens as well, and like laying hens, and same thing. Like, nothing tastes better than those eggs. Nothing. Like, I've never bought eggs that taste as good as the eggs that I've.
But does it really taste that good?
Right.
Or
Exactly. Is it just a subconscious thing that you're connecting to the work you put in? You're feeding them. You're letting them out. They're going in the yard. And
like when you're a little kid and you catch that first fish and you put it on the grill. There's nothing like that. Because you feel capable. This is primal part of us that likes to experience that. Yeah.
I will say with the eggs thing, though, I'm pretty sure they do actually taste better. Having had eggs from
I think they do.
I think they do actually.
But I think that there's also a psychological part of it. It's like when you're a home brewer, your first batch of beer. Oh my God, you're gonna take Budweiser out of business. You think you're the shit.
Oh my God, you'll appreciate this. I remember us at university. Me and two of the guys I was living with, we decided we're gonna make our own beer, because this price of beer thing is getting ridiculous. So we got a kit, we bought a carboy, we did the whole unit, and immediately, like, we lost steam right off the bat. And things went downhill. And so we're brewing this batch, and it's just in the basement kind of doing its thing, and we've lost track of it. And we're like, oh, man, it's a big party coming, a big pig roast. And we had bottled all this stuff, and it made like a bunch of 2-liter, we bottled it in like 2-liter bottles. It was awful. It was just sour. And it was the worst type of alcohol, because it didn't taste good. It had no carbonation, and it didn't get you drunk, and it only gave you a hangover.
Yeah,
it was like the 4 horsemen of the beer apocalypse. It was the worst possible thing. So we had all, spent one night drinking it, and we're like, we'll never touch that stuff again. Well, this big pig roast is coming along. We're like, this is a great opportunity, guys. We're gonna get rid of this stuff. So we put it. It was a big communal thing. There's like, 100 people at this pig roast, and we just put it on the table, walked away, washed our hands of it, and it was gone the next day. And I felt bad for every single person that drank it, but
responsible for that.
Yeah, well, they would never chalk it up to us, because certainly they didn't only drink that. I'm guaranteed.
There's no way to trace back the hangover.
Oh God, it was so bad. We were so bad at it.
That's great.
Should try it again, though. Really.
Yeah,
I feel like it's fun.
Yeah, come brew sometime.
I'm in.
Yeah.
Come Hugh sometime.
Yeah. We'll trade skills.
There you go.
Some Instagram posts.
You got an old dirt bike that you're not using? You want to turn into a chainsaw? Or?
I'm sure you could find a cheap one on Facebook Marketplace or something.
A lawnmower or something.
Yeah.
A lawnmower. They used to. Some of the biggest ones. Going back to the hot saws, but some of the biggest ones ever made were like 500 cc's. But they're god awful huge, and you can't to lift them. They're just way too heavy. Anyway, they're not practical at one point. They're not really practical, period.
No,
let's be honest about this. But
because you're doing 3 cuts, it doesn't matter how tired you get after 3 cuts, right?
No, I mean you won't get tired. I mean, they're heavy. They are heavy. They're hard on the body. They are. They just want to rattle you around and push you around, and they're way stronger than you are. Period. But to do 3 cuts on an 18-inch log with a top tier saw. And I didn't even mention like the chains, just the chain alone. A good properly filed specialty chain for one of these is like $500. The saws new can be 10 grand. They're not.
So they have like custom chains then?
Oh yeah, they're custom made and but 3 cuts on great wood with a perfect saw that runs good and everything. You can do 3 cuts from go with a saw that's not running. You got to start it 5 seconds. World record's like 4-something, 4.6 or something. Whoa.
So you started in college level, gone pro, competing, and now you're on the television production side. So you probably have an idea of who's your audience. Who's the audience? And has it changed over, like, how long have you been at this? 10 years?
On the broadcast side, since I did my first show in 2017, I was still competing. It was like an event that I didn't qualify for, and I kind of, same thing. I reached out, was like, hey, guys, I'd like to get into the broadcast side. Would you consider bringing me on for this event? Because I didn't qualify. They're like, yeah, sure, we'll give you a shot. And then, led to more broadcasts. But 2019, I joined the team kind of full-time. I retired from Timber Sports in 2019, and then I went on to the broadcast side, and I've been there ever since. We took a year off during the pandemic, 2011, so pretty much 5 or 6 years, something like that. So, but yeah, I mean, the audience is broader than you'd think, because I think a local audience tends to be people who have some connection to maybe the athletes or the sport themselves, or maybe they're loggers or something like that. So that's the live audience. The television audience is pretty broad appeal. You'd be surprised. Like sometimes you get the numbers back. Like I don't see them a lot for this particular series. I suppose I could, but when we did the World Championships, I got them back. And you kind of expect sort of 30 to 60-year-old men to absorb this, right? And that's sort of that network, right? But man, it's all genres, all age groups, genders. Everybody are watching this thing now, and I think part of that appeal is the growth and the development of the women's series. I think that's a super important part of the sport that for a long time that really wasn't invested in, and it could have been. And like shout out to the Canadian series, because they were the first to have a national championship in the women's division. Wow. And actually 2024 marks the 10th year of that division, and we were the first nation. Now there's a lot of the countries out there hosting women's championships, and we're starting to see like the international level and the world championship. But it started here, and I'm super proud of that. I mean, it was before my time too, but I mean, I just think, and I'm not taking credit for it in any stretch. I'm just saying that series did that, and I think it's super awesome. And I think that's one of the reasons you're seeing that broad appeal, because anybody can do the sport at the collegiate level. It's guys and girls. There's no, it's all. It's open to anybody. It's a great sport. Don't mess with
those Canadian ladies.
No, sir.
No,
sir.
I imagine there's some pretty impressive women.
Oh my God, yeah. Oh, unbelievable. We have our reigning champion.
Of professional female lumberjacks.
Oh yeah, for sure. Our reigning champion. She's from Quebec. Her name's Stephanie No. So last year she wins the national championships. We were in Chilliwack. She wins it. She sets the world record in 2 of the 4 events. There's 4 events, 4 disciplines. Yeah. She set the world record in the underhand chop, which is the one where you cut in between your feet, cut halfway through the log, you turn around, they cut halfway through. She sets the world record in that at like 20 some seconds. And then she sets the world record in the single buck, which is a super grueling event, one I was always shit at. And so you stand up there with like a 6.5 foot custom built crosscut saw, and you run that yourself, just back and forth, pushing and pulling. And she set the world record in that too. Like really just crazy impressive stuff. And our men's champion, he set the record in that too. Like we have really top level elite.
We have trees. That's one good advantage we have. We do have trees. And sometimes they're in the way.
Sometimes.
And they need to come down.
Yeah. Now we're pretty blessed with talent in Canada for sure right now. Like there's just really top level stuff. So it's pretty cool when you can kind of showcase all these competitors. It's pretty neat too. Actually, this year we're filming something brand new for TSN Plus, which is like the streaming platform for TSN. And it's like this behind the scenes series on like a select number of the competitors. Some of the top,
love that stuff.
Right.
People
like how often do you see that leading up to maybe a big fight or something where it's like, you build a connection with these people. you have this emotional investment in how they do. Like, well, I'm going to go watch when the show's on because I want to see how
that's
this
why
person
people like
did.
this stuff.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, exactly.
People like to know the story.
Yeah.
Yeah, the struggles.
Yeah.
What is it? What makes this person tick? What drives them? Yeah. It's cool. Story is so powerful. Really it is. Like without stories, where would humans be? A story is how we organize large groups of people.
Mm-hmm. I mean, before the invention of writing, that was it. That was how you shared. I mean, you think of indigenous cultures, and it was word of mouth over generations that shared these tales and connected one generation to the next. And really, that's still what we're doing. We're just using different platforms to do it.
Oh yeah, I mean, what is a country? It's a story that we've made up.
Yeah,
it really is.
It's
We
very
have this
fabricated.
identity, or I mean, story's been used for many great things, and it's been used for many bad things. I mean, Hitler told the story. He organized people around a story to motivate people to do something.
Yeah.
You know, we do the same today. Story is a very, very powerful thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's more. People love the sports, right?
Yeah.
You think when people are watching the Edmonton Oilers in the finals,
What a story that
they're
was.
thinking of all the Edmonton Oilers in the past. They're thinking of Gretzky and all this stuff, right? And overcoming a 3-0 deficit. It's
the
story.
drama, the build-up,
Yes.
Yeah, we're all chasing some.
Yeah. It's cool. I
unwritten
mean,
tale.
and again, like with your going on to your family's property that day with the axe, that's a story.
Mm-hmm.
There's a story there. Yeah.
Yeah, that was a super special thing, and timing's everything too. Had I done that maybe 5 years before, maybe I wouldn't have been as competent with the axe to be able to do that either. It's one of these things that I don't know, right place at the right time. It's you got to sort of you got to make it happen. Like I've been in the right place at the right time, but I've been in the wrong place, the right place at the wrong time, or I don't know what you want to say, but. Oh man, I remember. I was just looking down as you were talking. I have this scar on my thumb.
I guess you do.
Yeah. So that. So going back a few years when I was competing like full on, I was at a competition in Boys Town, New Brunswick, and there's an event that typically wraps up the competitions, the smaller competitions. Or I say smaller ones, but like local competitions, especially in the East Coast, it's big, and it's called the Kettle Boil, which is a super fun event. So they give you a can. It's an old apple juice can with a little bit of soap and water in it. They give you 3, sometimes 5 matches. Strike Anywhere's Firebirds, which you can't buy here anymore, which is a bit of a pain. They give you those. They give you a piece of dried cedar and you have your axe. And that's it. So you have those 4 things. Can, block of wood, axe, matches. And the goal is to build a fire, boil the water over the fastest. So that's it. So a fast time in that event would be like, if you're doing it yourself, sometimes you do it in just pairs and it's a little faster, but roughly about 3 minutes takes. So it's a long long event. Like you've got to, you make shavings and then you split the log and you're making kindling. Anyway, it's very fast and it's just super competitive here on the East Coast too. And it was one of my better events when I was competing.
Somebody was in a hurry to make tea to come up with this.
I know. The tea boil is another name for it. Yeah. The kettle boil, the tea boil, the water boil. I love it. The tea boil is like the best name for it. So anyway, I was going just way too fast, and my thumb was precariously set on the top of the log, and I went boom, 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 and just filleted the side of my thumb, and it was just the most disgusting thing.
Does it work well?
It works fine. It's good. We're good.
Okay.
But if it was like this. Had it been like this, And this thumb, I will say, this thumb and this, like, there's a scar there, and there's a scar here and here. Like that's all from the kettle boil. That is by far the event with the most.
Because you're making kindling and stuff. Right?
Yeah, like as fast as you can.
Oh,
which you really shouldn't do.
You shouldn't do.
Yeah, don't
recommend
try that at home. But
plug in kettle.
Oh god,
yeah, that is quicker.
Yeah,
we had a tea expert on last episode.
Oh yeah,
Thankfully, no one got cut.
That's great. I should tell him. Yeah.
Chop up our desk, make a fire.
Yeah, I immediately went to wearing a chainmail glove after that.
Oh yeah,
and which
smart.
Well, it would have been smarter to wear it beforehand, but
but you were invincible beforehand.
That's right, exactly. Yeah, I will say, and this is something that the question comes up a lot about when people are chopping. They're like, "Oh my God, what happens if you hit your feet?" That's like the classic question. Every person that's ever swung an axe in competition has had somebody ask that question. And we wear chainmail socks that go inside your shoes. They're thin.
They cannot be comfortable.
Nah, they're pretty thin.
Yeah.
You don't notice them.
And
Your mind's on.
You
what
size
you're doing.
the shoes appropriately and stuff.
Yeah,
like
you
that.
wear a size bigger typically for your chopping shoes. But
Wow.
the thing is, it'll stop you from cutting yourself. The shoe will. I've seen shoes like sliced almost in two. People hit and they hit their foot. It doesn't happen that often. It happens more to like amateurs than the professional level. You don't see it much, but you do when people are just learning. But they hit their foot. You won't cut yourself, but it'll break your foot because you're swinging like a 6 pound
it's so much
point,
force,
and you're swinging as hard as you can, 100% power, 100% of the time, every single swing. So if you clip yourself, like if you take a sledgehammer and hit yourself in the foot as hard as you can, that's the force and the weight of that. Except for it's to a very fine point.
Yeah.
And so it's just
You're
like
going to break something.
Oh yeah. I've never done that. I've been very fortunate. I had pretty limited injuries other than the thumb and a few nicks and scrapes and things. Well, and had back surgery. I also had, I should say too, I had a career-ending-ish injury where there's an event called the Springboard Shop where there's a pole. It's about a 9-foot pole. And what you have to do is take one of these axes. I've used this axe for it, and you cut a notch into the side of the pole, and then you stick a board that has a little metal clip and a little hook on it into that notch, and that hooks into the tree, and you jump on that board, and then you're standing on the board, and it springs and bounces. Simulates what they used to do out west, big butt flared trees, and they would cut notches and to get higher up the tree where it's narrower, and then cut the tree down. So I cut into this tree, I put a notch and I jump up. Then I cut my second notch. I put the second board and I jump up on that. So at this point, my feet are roughly 6 feet off the ground.
That seems
I'm
like
about
Looney
6'3",
Tunes
so my head is 12 and a half feet above the ground. My axe is way up here, and I'm cutting into this log. But we call them pockets, the notch. The pocket I cut was pretty subpar. I was never a great springboard cutter, and I peeled what happens is if you're heavy, I'm a pretty heavy guy. And if you cut into that tree and you don't go deep enough and you're heavy, the force of the back of the board is lifting all the time, right? I'm like the boards actually spring and bounce and they move. The pole moves. It's a whole freaking thing. So, and you're up there trying to swing with full force into this log to cut through the log that's up top. You have to cut halfway through one side and finish it off.
This does not seem wise.
Yeah, if you don't know what you're doing, well, I typically didn't, but I tried. I always tried. So I get up there and this freaking board rips the side of the tree right off to the top, peels it off, and I come down back first. And all I'm thinking, like everything kind of goes slow-mo when something like that happens. And I just remember thinking like, don't damage the axe, and reaching out, that, which is also don't cut yourself, but it's like, that's a good axe. So I'm kind of pushing it out, but I'm also not going to throw it because I don't want to damage it. And there might be people around or something too, but I also don't want to, So I'm reaching out as far as I can for my body so that I'm not going to cut myself or damage the axe or whatever. Both of those things happened successfully. However, I hit back first.
How far did you fall?
Well, I mean, my feet were at 6 feet when I started falling, so my back was probably 11 or 12 feet up, and I just back first onto it. It was a grass. It was a grassed area, grassed and gravel, so it wasn't too bad. Like I didn't fall on like concrete or something. I didn't hit my head, but I stuck my arm out and I smashed it on this rock, and it just mashed up a bunch of bone in there. It drove some like a bone spur into the tendon, and anyway, so. Finished the day. I got through that competition because that was the first event of the day. So you had to keep going.
Yeah.
So like, you drove all that way. I was up in Boys Town, New Brunswick. You're not gonna. That was the same place that I cut my finger. I had good luck in battle. It was a love-hate relationship I have with Boys Town.
Not a lot different than rodeo. It seems
right.
like.
A lot of injuries.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was kind of the beginning of the end. That was the last year I competed, and
was that the back injury?
no, that was elbow. I had elbow
you'd
surgery
already had
after
a
that.
bad back.
Yeah, the back was like before I ever went to the pro level, because that was So at that point, it was like, all right, listen, this is not a career. This is a hobby, and I'm going into my second surgery in 3 years. Yeah. Let's be serious here. And I was like, I'm 35. I'm 40 now. It's 35 years old. I was like, all right, let's be realistic here.
Yeah.
Just chasing a bit of glory.
But
I'm still in it, and I get to and I mean, a lot of the folks that are competing still are buddies of mine that I competed with, and it's an excuse to I still get to go and hang out with them and shoot the shit, and I enjoy doing this side of it because, I mean, it's kind of, it's a version of me on the screen that's like cranked up to 10. Right? Like it's the professional wrestling,
Ooh, yeah.
right. That's it. So it's a lot of fun, but it's draining too, where at the end of a day or a competition or something, I am zonked. I have nothing left in the tank. I just kind of pour it all out there and then go and I'm completely toast.
I get that. I mean, it's funny that they say the brain uses about 25% of our calories, and people using like their brains, like, you know, like they say, like judges. If a judge sits on the bench for days, you know, for a full day, they're exhausted. Their body didn't do much at all, but their brain is exhausting. That was one thing that surprised me about doing this first episode. I was wiped out.
Yep.
And I thought, well, just because it was the first episode, I was nervous. Next episode, same thing, especially if it's like a heavy topic.
Oh, yeah.
Like the poorhouses or the mass shootings, stuff like that. I just get wiped out. I just need like a little bit of time after. Yeah. You don't realize how demanding some of these things are.
Well, you're super focused.
Yeah.
Right. And you want to do well. And like, you're putting the pressure on yourself to like, I really want to deliver. I want this to be, you know, my best episode yet, right? Yeah. I want this to be the best one, and I want the next one to be the best one. You know, you're always trying to build on the past ones, and that's how I feel going into those live events, especially. The television side is interesting because a lot of it's filmed, and sometimes there's opportunities to reshoot, but not often. Usually it's live. But it sort of rolls off as like, it is what it is, you know. And there's editing, right? They're going to turn it into something. Yeah. You know, they'll clip it and make it look good. That's what those guys do. They're pros, and they're the best. You know, it's really impressive. Yeah. But in a live event, and this I feel is kind of similar in a way, because this is almost like, you know, we're taped live and it's going to be what it is. You really want to deliver your best in that moment, and you know, and credit people that are taking the time out of their day to listen, or whether they're driving or whether they're you know,
try to
plugging
respect
in
the
their
audience.
Exactly. I think that's super important. Like, I always try to appreciate that, like, somebody took time out of their life, which I have an enormous amount of value for.
Time is the most precious thing we have.
100% it is.
You can't make more.
You can't make more. So I think anytime someone wants to show up and be somewhere, or, you know, tune in and listen to an episode, like, respecting that we should be entertaining if we can, right? Or you know, give them the best version of yourself, I guess, is where I'm going with that.
So what do you do? Like, that's another common question we have with all of our guests, is like, to perform at a high level, it takes a certain amount of discipline and self-care for, you know, excellence and longevity. Yeah. So what are some of the things that you've struggled with? Injuries, and now you're not doing the physical part of it, but you're doing more of the commentating part. But what do you do to kind of keep yourself at the best? Because that's something I think a lot of young people don't realize, and maybe you didn't realize when you started, and I didn't. No. When I started, but you learn as you age, because you can't just make up with things with effort after a while. You start to age, you start to break the body, the exhaustion. You have to learn at a certain point to be more efficient. To take care of yourself, your mind, your body, your spirit, all that kind of stuff.
Oh, for sure. When I was competing, I was not kind to myself or my body. Like, I trained a lot, and I was in the gym, and I did those things for like physical health, but I was constantly in pain. My back was all messed up, and then eventually my elbow, and I was just, honestly, I was living off of like, not like, it wasn't like prescription painkillers, but it was like over-the-counter stuff, just Tylenol and Aleve, 4 or 5 of those every morning as soon as you get up, and like throughout the day, and then every night, just like, I'm gonna have a few glasses of scotch to kind of take the edge off and go to bed. And I recognized after like a couple of years of that, was this is terrible long term, and I'm not going to get the most out of my performance and all this stuff. So that was another reason why I kind of recognized, like, okay, it's time to give it up, because this is not, as much as I'm enjoying this, it's not good for me long term. Like, I'm going to be freaking crippled at 50, and 2, I'm destroying my insides. So
but if you had maybe had some of that coaching or self-discipline earlier, you're only 40. Yeah. There's probably lots of guys competing.
There is. You can keep going. You can keep going.
If you had that discipline and focus. Yeah. Early. But I mean, obviously you're loving what you're doing now.
For sure.
But then you see people like LeBron James, who is like incredible. Still incredible. Like, how old is that guy? Or Tom Brady, they're in their 40s. Like, but they are 2 guys that's invested a lot, like nutrition, ice baths, massage, chiro, like whatever. They're spending I think LeBron James spends $1 million a year looking after his body. But yeah, you got to. If you want to perform at a high level for a long time, you really need to discipline yourself that way.
Yeah, and I think now, I appreciate that so much more now. And I did at the time I started to, but now for sure. And, the broadcast side, because it's a lot of being able to be like or have the energy to go for a long day. Like when I was in Truro, I was on the microphone for 11 hours straight. I was gassed at the end. And so we hosted an event. Then that event ended. I ran across the road, did some pre-filming for the TSN Plus series, then ran back across the road, slammed a sandwich, and then hosted the national championships. And it was just nonstop, so, but in order to do that, back to your question, I try to be really conscious of what I eat and what I drink and what I don't drink. I don't have any alcohol in the definitely the night before, sometimes a day or two ahead of time, because I want to get good nights. I want to get really good rest.
And it's big time impact.
Oh yeah.
They really do.
So eating right, and staying away from booze, and then the day of just being really conscious of what you eat and what you drink. And I mean it's and even so the axe throwing is another thing where I think being conscious of almost like these marathon days. They're not. It's that's why a lot of time I compare timber sports or whatever to track and field. They're long days where the actual competition time for the athlete is pretty condensed, right? You're going to be 30 seconds here or 2 minutes here or whatever, but in between those, it might be an hour, it might be 2 hours. So being able to manage your energy through those days is a really hard thing to do. And I think that the broadcasting side mimics that in some ways, where you have downtime in between, and your body's okay, let's have a little nap here. And sometimes that's the right thing to do, and sometimes it's not. And knowing over time, and sometimes you have to just kind of gauge that. But I've had good luck. Definitely recently, but the more I'm doing this with just recognizing when I need a break, and when sometimes you think you want food and maybe you shouldn't, and caffeine and just whatever.
My relation with caffeine is sketchy. But with television, it's so so there's not as much money in television as used to be. I mean, there used to be 3 channels, right? Yeah. And there was so many people watching TV because there was no internet, right? Yeah. I think there was a show way back that got canceled that had only 15 million viewers. It Janet Jackson was on or something as a kid. And it only hit 15 million viewers, and it was considered a failure. Yeah. Where nobody gets 15 million viewers now, right?
So we had 500,000 on our series.
That was huge, probably.
And they were like, man, you guys are doing great. Yeah. And the funny thing is because I'm comparing that immediately to the social media numbers you see, which it's not hard to get a few million views on something these days, or maybe 10 or 20. But the difference is you're talking about a 15 or 20 second clip versus a 23-minute television episode that 500,000 people have sat down and watched. Right. And that's very different. And so when it was when I sat down and thought about that, I really
is probably
oh my similar. God, oh, it's huge, right? Yeah. So I really appreciated that. I was like, holy shit, okay, we did pretty good with this. That's awesome. And because I remember being disappointed when I saw the numbers, oh fuck, we only had that many.
Yeah, a girl on Instagram shakes her ass and has that much.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. So it was anyway. So, but now thinking back, I was like, man, that's really cool. We created something. Right. Our team just created something that got that many people to watch it across Canada. People we would never ever see or meet or anything, and it was really cool. And on the network that I grew up watching before it was SportsCenter, it was Sports Desk. Yeah. Gina Retta, Michael Landsberg.
It's crazy, right?
Yeah.
It's
bananas.
You're on
it blows my mind. It's the most surreal thing.
Yeah.
Just a kid from Digby.
Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe, or if you'd like to support us, please visit Refound Brewing Company at 577 Main Street, Kingston, or buy our product wherever it's available, including our Foolishly Optimistic IPA.
That's amazing.
Yeah, you never know. No. You never know where you're going to end up. Put in that time, have that passion, and just find something you love and pour yourself into it, and opportunities come up.
Yeah.
They really do.
Yeah, they do.
Yeah.
You're right.
It's pretty cool. Yeah, so the whole self-care thing is huge. Something that I think that a lot of us don't put enough thought into.
Well, what are you doing now? Because you must be working crazy hours. If you're running the you're running a business, standalone, just running a business.
A few businesses.
Right. Okay.
There's the brewing company, which is kind of its own business, and the restaurant.
Are you still brewing out of North
Digby,
Range?
Yeah.
Okay, nice.
And then I've got some accommodations and more accommodations coming. So I'm renovating other properties and
nice.
getting more
That's awesome.
accommodations. Yeah. And now the podcast. Yeah. So, but that's the thing is as you do more, you got to be more efficient.
Yes.
You got to lead better, delegate better, but then you also have to make sure that this machine that you have is working properly.
You get sick, there's only one of you.
I know. About a year ago, I had to get really serious about my diet, exercise. I started cold plunging last October.
Really? Yeah.
And cold plunged or cold showered every day since, except for 3 days when I had pneumonia and I was not allowed.
Okay.
But only took off 3 days with pneumonia. But I find that helps really kind of reset the nervous system.
Really?
Yeah.
So every day.
Shock.
Is that how you start the day?
That's how I start the day.
Really?
I get up, I make my bed, put my coffee on, go outside, take a cold shower. I have an outdoor shower now because my ice and my cold plunge is all melted.
Okay.
And I just like going out first thing in the sun. Like yesterday, it was brutal because it was storming, raining.
Yeah,
so here I am having a shower outdoors in the rain.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Seems counterproductive.
But
it's just stand in the rain.
But it's
redundant a little bit, but it's cool.
But that shock of that cold, it helps with inflammation.
Okay.
It helps.
Oh, wow.
Spend about 3 minutes in it, and it helps
3
reset that nervous system. You just get about 30 seconds in, you get this wave of dopamine and some other word there, but you just kind of get endorphins. You kind of get this pain relieving. It helps with the inflammation. It kind of resets your brain. The anxiety just goes away because your body literally thinks it's going to die. Mm-hmm. And I think nature is when it thinks this organism is going to die, it's like, throw them a bone, give them a little bit of a wave of endorphins and stuff to help them pass into the next world. But there's a little.
You're really selling it well.
The first 30 seconds sucks. After that, it's euphoric.
Okay.
I don't know what heroin feels like, but I would imagine it's something like that. You just feel this flow go through your body of these happy juices that kind of just takes the stress away.
Okay.
Yeah. And it makes you more alert and all that stuff. And you start the day with this amazing win because you're I did something hard and I do it every day and I don't let myself talk myself out of it.
Nice. That's the hardest thing.
Start the day. Yeah. You make your bed, you make your coffee, you do the cold shower. Yeah. And you've started the day with a few wins of difficult things, and then you can kind of go into whatever challenge comes next with just a little more confidence.
I like that approach.
It sets you up for winning. I find. Yeah, I mean you're pretty fit. You must do something.
I go to the gym, and I found the last couple of years I picked up a watch that tracks your. Mm-hmm. steps and workouts and sleep. That's a huge one.
Something I need to work out.
I'm
terrible at that.
And I'm naturally competitive. But I'm competing with myself most of the time. Yeah. But I'm like, oh my God, why did I only get a 94 sleep score? I want 90. I want 99. I want 100. It's competitive. I know it's so ridiculous. It's so absurd.
Competitive.
I know it's so freaking absurd. I hear myself saying it, but
there is such a thing as competitive sleeping.
Oh my! Oh
well, how do I enter that?
A performance enhancing drug is like sleepy time.
That is a performance enhancing drug. It's the best thing for you, man. I love.
He was busted for sleeping pills.
It's so ridiculous. I'm waking up in the morning and the first thing I'm doing, all right, what did we get here? What?
But that's it's an old guy thing, right? We realize our energy, our days are numbered.
Yeah.
Our energy, our machine is breaking down. Efficiency.
Yeah.
You got to have discipline and efficiency if you're gonna make a mark. It's you're up against it. When you start to get to our age, you start to think that way, right? Like Ben, you've had bad back recently.
Oh yeah.
Kicking ass with the yoga, and you found
nice.
huge, right?
Yeah. So every morning I do yoga.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Helps prevent injury, flexibility.
Oh, it's great. It's
great. My daughter sometimes does it with me.
Yeah. Nice. And you see a lot of guys in their late 30s and 40s start to get that. You start to realize your body you abuse your body in your 20s and your 30s, and you say I got to take more responsibility.
Catch up for sure.
Oh yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I think everyone pretty much is. I mean, unless you've got some.
You take a lot for granted early on.
You do
for sure. Your entire 20s are just
yeah.
I'll be fine. I need 3 hours of sleep, and
been there.
I'll drink 20 beers.
But you see some real stats about the people of excellence. I think most CEOs, very successful people, they're all fit.
Yeah.
And they all work out.
Yeah.
And I don't,
Oh, you got
what
to.
is it? Is it that discipline? The discipline to work out is also discipline in the work? Or is it partly, which comes first, the chicken or the egg? You know what I mean?
And also just being fit, like that does kind of increase your blood flow to the brain probably, and all
Alertness.
kinds of stuff,
Yeah.
right?
All
And
that,
and the
yeah.
confidence of having done it as well.
Right.
So
And I mean, a lot of these guys, it's no different than you're just saying, like they're conscious of their time. And if you get downtime for being sick, that's a big thing. So the more you can try to keep yourself healthy through, an hour or whatever day of focused exercise, that's an investment. It's no different than investing money. To them, they're investing time in their health. And I mean, it's just the best investment you can make.
and if the successful people are investing an hour a day in their health, that means it must be worth it, because they wouldn't be doing it
They're
if it
not
wasn't.
gonna waste the time.
Yeah, their time's worth enormous amounts of
Yeah.
money.
It seems counterintuitive that you feel tired and sluggish. The solution is to spend more energy. If you're broke, the solution isn't usually spend more money.
No.
But if you're being tired and sluggish,
It can be, though, because it can be like the solution is to spend
invest
more
in
money
the right
invest-
place.
Yeah.
But that's it.
Buy
That's
more
it.
axes.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
But to take that time and have that daily discipline, it helps with your confidence.
Yeah.
And it helps with
It
your
does.
energy. And
You feel so
we're-
good afterwards,
We've
too.
evolved to be active
Oh,
creatures. Yeah, we
Yeah.
didn't really evolve to sit at desks
No.
under fluorescent lights and live that way.
Yeah,
that's
we
not
didn't.
how we evolved.
And it doesn't make us happy either.
It doesn't
No,
make us
God,
happy.
no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time, like my day job is mostly, it's a lot of sitting, a lot of time, just not being super active. So I'm kind of challenging myself to do things more, to be focused. It's like to really push and get steps in or whatever. And like the silly things like that they sound funny, but I mean, it's really, I feel good. Like I hit numbers or whatever, 8 or 10,000 steps or whatever. And it's like, okay, I did that today, and I spread it out over the day, and then maybe I go and hit the gym, and it's like, all right, I feel great. And it's great. And I will say, like, axe throwing is kind of a funny one, because you mentioned yoga. That is very much a therapeutic thing for me.
Oh, I bet.
And I think a lot of people would say that, because it's very much about like breathing and focus, and you shut everything in the world out to do well at it
Meditative.
anyway.
You
It's
gotta get
very
that-
meditative.
You've got to get that Zen thing going,
Yes,
right?
you've got it. You just get into this zone where really nothing else is happening around you. I mean, you're aware of your surroundings, of course. If
But
a
you're not
bear, if
thinking
a
about
bear's
the-
coming at you, you're not going to
Yeah. Well, you're ready. But you're not thinking about the bills. You're not thinking
No.
about the to-do list.
And
You're
it's-
thinking about one thing, and that is a purifying
Oh, my
mental
God,
process. Yeah.
Well, for the meditative thing, like you mentioned, being able to recognize as soon as a thought comes into your head and clear that out and go back to, okay, I'm going to hit the bullseye. Like that's what that is for me. And I find going out and having a training session and throwing a bit in the backyard and then being done, like it's a similar feeling to coming out of a workout.
Yeah.
Even though, I mean, it's exercise, but it's not overly.
But it's just blocking off that outside world for a little bit.
And you're still physically doing something. You still
sure.
You still have elevating your heart rate a little bit.
Yep, you're pacing back and forth between the target every
And
time
you're
you're
doing it without a substance. Because a lot of us, anxiety now, like we have a lot of stress and anxiety, and a lot of times it's easier to reach for
Have
a
a beer.
bottle or
Yeah.
a joint or something like
Yeah.
that, or drug, even more dangerous drugs.
Yeah.
To alter our consciousness, to escape that anxiety, that gnawing in the back of our brains,
Yeah.
But to do something like a walk or meditation or yoga or archery or axe throwing or whatever it is, that can really help you escape from that. And a little break from that is huge.
Yeah.
Huge.
Break from the device too, like not
Yeah,
looking at your phone
exactly.
for however long you're out there throwing. And
Yeah.
I find too, like you were talking about like rituals or routines or whatever that you do. And one thing I started, and it was kind of during the pandemic, I never used to read a lot, but during the pandemic started reading a bit, and I've got into this, habit of every night before bed, like when I lay down to go to bed, I pick up a book and I try to read a few pages or however many I can get through. But I find it's a really good practice for, one, it shuts your brain off from whatever you've been thinking about or worrying about or you're anxious about. Two, it's a story that can kind of engage you. And three, you're not looking at your phone.
Yeah.
And I think all of those things together lead to better sleep, which is good. And ultimately, it's just, I mean, there's no place that you're ever going to find something that says like reading is bad for you.
No.
It's great. It's a good practice, and it's something that I neglected for most of my life, but I'm enjoying it now. I'm reading interesting books, and it's kind of a neat way to end the day.
Yeah, I've started that recently too. I hate reading. I struggled to learn to read as a kid, so reading was never a fun thing.
Yeah.
But here I am, now older, and it's like I've realized I probably have a bit of ADHD brain.
Right.
And I love audiobooks and podcasts because I can put them on and I can do shit.
Yeah.
I'll just go.
Are you able to focus on them while you're doing things?
Yeah.
See, I struggle with that.
Yeah, I can. But my brain goes in many directions at once.
Okay.
And it's kind of a curse and kind of a superpower, and who knows.
Yeah.
But now I'm learning. Recently, I've decided I need to force myself to slow down. Like you said, put the phone away. Mm-hmm. Just lay on my bed, open an actual paper book, not one on my phone.
Right.
And just keep my brain focused on that and bring down my blood pressure and bring down my anxiety. It is good for you. I think so, because it's not easy.
No.
But a lot of the things that are not easy are best for us.
Yeah, and my mind trails off too, same as everybody else's. And it's like, oh shit, I just went through that whole page. I have no clue what was on there.
Here
we go again.
I think we're overstimulated, and our brains really aren't meant to be this busy.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the ancient things like hunting, you just had to focus on hunting.
Oh my God, yeah.
Or focus on the garden, or focus on whatever it is. And we didn't have the artificial lights. We weren't staying up all night. We weren't on the devices and all that stuff. We were not really built for this world. I think we're a little bit overstimulated.
Yep. I agree completely.
Yeah.
I think those old ways, like reading a book or gardening, just like you said, like these are ways to connect, or, cutting down a tree. Yeah. You gotta be pretty focused on that too, let me tell you.
Yeah.
It's, there's these connections to, like you say, like heritage, or just maybe it's this primal thing that's in the back of our minds that hooks you, that you're like, oh, this is why I want. It's almost like you're was it Lindsay, the dog trainer? Yeah. So talking a bit about like dogs, they used to have jobs, right? And they don't have jobs anymore. Like my dog is a Great Pyrenees, and I'm going to tell you right now, that dog is not designed for the life it's living. It wants to be on a farm. Mm-hmm. It wants to be looking after sheep, and it wants to never be on a leash. Yeah,
and I think we're the same.
Yeah, so exactly.
We're on leashes.
Yeah,
yeah.
We are tied to, jobs that are that give us, they give you purpose for sure, and I think that's important.
Very important.
But, it's hard to do something that you don't always see meaning in, and a lot of people are in positions where they're doing things where it's just like, I'm just paying the bills, man. Right. I'm just trying to get through the day.
Go to your day job and do stuff for some company. I don't know exactly what you do. You're doing something, you don't really see the result at the end of the day. Yeah. But you go on your property with your axe and you make a beam. Yeah. And it feels like you've done a purpose.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. Like seeing the results of your work. I mean, I think like carpentry would be an example of that, where you finish your day and you've worked hard all day, and like you can look back and see like, oh, look what I did today. That's pretty cool. And I have an enormous amount of respect for the trades and people that really that work with that. They're the same thing. They're super focused on what they're doing. They're applying their craft, and they're also getting to see like a physical result.
It matters. They've built someone's shelter, or a farmer has grown someone's food.
Oh yeah.
Say farmers are some of the happiest people because they have a real purpose.
Yeah.
They know they're feeding.
And you can see as you get better at things. You can see as you get better at things as well. I think that's important. Like you can see as you improve things, you can see you're getting faster at it, or the end product is better, or something. You can actually see that. Yeah. If you're working on spreadsheets all day, so somebody else's salary is going to go up by 5%. Who gives a fuck, really?
Yeah, amen to that. Right?
Yeah, it's true. It's my God, yeah. I've got another little setup at the willow. You're gonna come out. You can come too, Ben.
Yeah.
And it's a little chainsaw mill. So it's like this aluminum frame that basically you can lift logs onto, like hand, one at a time, and you can mill them into beams and things. Mm-hmm. So
I think I've seen that kind of thing.
Yeah, it's a pretty simple design, but it's freaking awesome. Mm. And again, like I can cut a tree down, pick the log up, put it on this rig, and mill it into beams, like right there. Mm-hmm. And it's just the coolest thing ever. I freaking love it.
And what is it in us that wants to do things the hard way?
I know.
So we were talking about that before.
Yeah.
Ben was talking about, someone might buy $1 million home, which isn't that much anymore, right? Yeah. And they could be super proud of it. But he's like, but I would rather have a log cabin I built myself.
I know.
And what is that? what is that in us that has that kind of pride or fascination that wants to do things the hard way? Because I am well known for doing shit the hard way. When I started the restaurant, I want to make things from scratch. I didn't want to just get things out of the freezer and throw them in a fryer. That's not what I wanted. So we've done things the hard way. And I had a Cisco rep tell me one time, you make a lot more money if you just buy it from us. I'm like, well, then I don't want to do this. He goes, what are you talking about? It's like he just couldn't understand that the goal wasn't money. I said, the goal isn't money. So if I can't make money doing it the way I'm proud of, I'll go do something else.
Well, the goal isn't a spreadsheet, right? It's not
right.
At least not for me.
You want to have some pride in what you're doing. And here, 8 years later, we're still in business. I don't know if that's just stubborn or what, but I do think that there is people that appreciate doing things the hard way. And those people have been coming and supporting us and helping us to survive all this stuff. And the same probably kind of thing with your audience. Like they appreciate, there is a certain amount of people that have an appreciation for doing these old things the hard way. And you see more and more of that. You can get your bread a lot cheaper at the superstore, but you can go to Artisan Baker and get a real sourdough. Yeah. And there's more and more of those folks that seem to be supporting these things.
I think you're right. Are you familiar with the guy, either of you ever heard of Dick Prenneke? Do you know who that is? Mm. So he was this American that in the 1950s, he decides, I've had about enough with society. He was like a diesel mechanic in the Midwest, and he says, I'm going to go up to Alaska, and I'm going to build myself a cabin. I'm going to live there.
This is not the Unabomber, but so far, same kind of
story. Yeah, it starts that way. But so he was a super interesting guy. So he goes up there, and he documents everything he's done. It really meticulous journals, but he also brought camera equipment and basically filmed himself. And he did it in a way that was basically like, I'm going to set up the tripod and walk away from it. Yeah. He filmed himself. And so, fast forward, he ends up living there for like 30 years. Wow. Like he would come in and out. It wasn't like he was a hermit. Like he had connections. He wrote letters all the time. He stayed connected with people. His brother was a pilot as well. His brother was a pilot. He'd fly in. They'd fly him stuff in. So he's not like this anti-social person necessarily, but certainly those sorts of tendencies, I guess. But he was 50 when he went up there. He stayed up there until he was in his 80s. Wow. It's pretty wild. So, and he hand builds this cabin that is absolutely stunning. Hews all the beams, everything by hand, just him, like unbelievable. So you fast forward to like early 2000s, PBS gets a hold of this footage and these journals. It says like, this is incredible. We're going to cut this all together and turn it into a 90-minute, show, and we'll get a narrator to read his journals over top of the sections that we're going to show in there. And it's like the most engaging and incredible show. It's called Alone in the Wilderness. You can find clips of it on YouTube. And I've read his book as well, which was basically the journals. And he's the most inspiring, incredible human being. Like, and when I saw that stuff, I was living on the West Coast, and I lived out there for a few years, and somebody had given me like this DVD at the time. I was like, oh, you might like this. And I watched it every single night before I fell asleep. It was like the most incredible. I mean, I didn't watch the whole thing. I'd fall asleep. Yeah. But the most incredible, Dick Prenneke is the guy's name. Look him up. He's absolutely incredible. I mean, he's dead now, but that cabin's still there. It's like this National Historic Site in the States, and you can go and you can book tours and things, but unreal. And I think the reason that resonates, with me and so many people to watch that is just like what you're saying. It's like, holy shit, this guy, he did it right. Like he did it the hard way, but he has this incredible appreciation for the land and like there's videos of him like fishing and hunting and talking about, making the most of the meat he uses. And he like hunted in season. He never, he respected all the rules and laws and stuff. It's just a really interesting guy. So anyway, I think, I think that resonates with our culture, especially nowadays. But even then,
I mean, there's like it's just beautiful to be able to do that, actually, isn't it?
There seems to be
I would
this
love to be able to do that.
Oh my God!
Seems to be like a collective longing for these old things. Like, why did people everywhere decide to make sourdough during the pandemic? I know. You know what I mean? Start gardening. Like, there's something in us that just is longing for that. A lot of people got chickens. A lot of people got chickens. Yeah. Ben, you're saying you thought about you want to become a blacksmith.
Yeah, I'd love to learn that. That's such a cool skill.
Yeah.
And it's useful, and it's like therapeutic, cathartic, and just.
But it's so weird, right? Because like probably your great-grandfather was a blacksmith. But then, like, your
Probably
father
thrived
and
not to
grandfather
be a
were like,
blacksmith.
yeah, we're happy to just get our shit at the hardware store. Thank you. I'll go buy nails there.
Yeah.
But now it's like we've gotten some distance from that, and we want to do that again.
Yeah.
It was like with a whole reality TV show came along. Like, because when I remember my grandparents and great-grandparents, they wanted to watch, like, Knots Landing and stuff. Like, they worked hard on farms, and they wanted to see, like, the lifestyles of the rich and famous and all these soap operas and this highfalutin kind of thing that they didn't really get to live. That was television in, like, the 70s and the 80s.
Yep.
And now we've got this soft, cushy life. And
Right.
now what
So
do we
it's
watch?
the fantasy is the hard
The
stuff.
Deadliest Catch,
Right.
or Ice Road Truckers,
Right.
or axe
And
throwing.
also, all
or
of the like the
some
all
of
the
these
celebrity culture is pretty fucking vapid. I mean, it's
Right.
not.
Yeah.
It's pretty pointless. I mean, who gives a fuck about some woman with a fat ass who's got a line of clothing? I don't.
But there's a
don't care.
weird kind of callback where we're
Yeah.
interested in, or like Naked and Afraid or Man Tracker or all these kinds of things.
It's way more interesting. I mean, yeah, you're.
But what is it that changed in culture? Because our ancestors used to actually do this shit.
That's true.
Now we
Right.
don't do it, but we're fascinated and want to watch it. Or like the gold miner shows. And there's so much of that stuff.
Yeah.
People are going to an office, sitting in fluorescent lighting, coming home and watching people work physically.
Yeah, it's the escape, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like it's whatever the whatever you're doing. It's like, what's the antithesis? What is the opposite of this is what I'm doing? I'll tell you. I mean, you know, when I came out of forestry school, when I came out of and I started working, I was, like I said, I was on Vancouver Island, I was working up in the bush, and basically I was just working in the woods every day, and that's all I did. You know,
Working, it was like cutting trees.
No, I wasn't cutting. I was mostly doing. I was walking through sites that had already been cut and like looking at reforestation and things like that. So it was younger forest, for the most part, out there. And then when I moved back to the East Coast, I was doing like timber cruising. So that's like assessments to figure out how much timber is on a plot of land, and you know what's its value and those sorts of things, estimates, and designing roads, things like that. That you know, logging plans, whatever. But the thing is at the time I remember my girlfriend was like, well, let's go camping on the weekend. And it's like, that's the last fucking thing I want to do. I've been in the woods like 50 hours this week. No, if we're going somewhere, I want to stay in like a nice hotel, or you know, a cushy bed, or I'll sit. Like, I'd love to watch television. That would be great. I'm not going to be bit by flies or soaked or whatever, right? And so I think, to your point, like it's almost like whatever we do that becomes the norm for us, we're constantly thinking about like, how do I escape from this for a little bit? And whether that's I sit at a desk so I want to hew a beam, or whether it's I am in the woods all day running equipment so I want to go to a nice, or I want to go to like a show. I want to go watch some music on the weekend and have a few beers and like dress up in a nice shirt or something. Like I think it's just a break from our lives so that it doesn't get monotonous.
Like a dentist who buys a Harley.
Yeah, I guess the grass is greener, right? Humans, we just can't please us.
There is an element of that, probably, I'm sure.
Yeah.
There is, yeah. Single people want to be married. Married people want to be single.
Right.
I don't want to be single.
Yeah, you have to say that. You're not.
This is recorded. He can edit it out, though. Yeah.
That's what you're. Amber, he does say that when it's not rolling too.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. Oh, shoot. Do you have kids?
No kids. No.
No kids?
No. Just one big, massive animal that is a small bear.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Cool.
I think he's gonna be like, good lord, he's got to be 120 or 130 pounds. Like this. Oh, he's a lot.
Like, I have kids, and I'm trying to help them appreciate some of these things, you know, younger than I did.
Yep.
Kind of thing.
Yep.
Yeah, they're not interested, but I wasn't either. So
Right.
it's kind of
It's
natural.
hard. You can't force. It's hard
No,
to
you
force
can't.
those lessons, you know.
Yeah. I have a grandson now who's only like 3 months old, so I want to share some of these things with him, you know, because I think a lot of this stuff gets forgotten as well.
Yeah.
Right? Like a lot of these
for
things
sure.
get forgotten.
Yep.
At what age can you put an axe in his hand?
Yeah. And it's so
Earlier the
funny.
better.
Yeah.
Are you trying to raise a champion here?
Tell his mother that. But like,
Listen, I'll tell you, the kid that won the national championship in Truro last weekend, I say kid, he's 18. Everyone else he was competing with was like 25 years old.
Wow.
There was 8 guys competing. 7 of them had come out of the collegiate program. So they were all, you know, in their 20s. They learned through college, whatever. And most of them probably, that's where they were introduced to the sport, or maybe 4-H or something, but pretty much they're in college. The young guy that won it, he's from BC. He grew up in the sport. His father is named Mitch Hewitt. He's a multiple-time national champion. He's won the world title 15 times in this one event, which is arguably the hardest wood chopping event. I would say it is the hardest wood chopping event in the world.
There's not a tree left on their property.
Oh man. The event that he won 15 times world title was in Sydney, Australia. It's the biggest wood chopping event in the world, the Royal Sydney Easter Show. You do the springboard chop like I was explaining, except instead of 2 boards high, you go 3 boards high. Then you cut halfway through the log up top. Then you descend, bringing one of the boards down with you as you come. Then you go back up the other side 3 boards high, and you finish the log. He's won that 15 times. Wow! So he's the one that's raising Jake, who's just won. And I remember, I was competing on the West Coast. This is maybe 2017, 2018. I don't remember which year. And I'm in the springboard chop, and I go to and the heat. We go in heats, and there's probably 6 or 7 people in the heat that I'm competing against. And I look over, and Jake, who at the time is like 11 years old, is competing in this heat. Oh. I am about 35 years old. I was like, there's no goddamn way I'm losing to that kid right now. I have never been so driven to not lose. It wasn't so much winning. I was like, there's no way I'm losing this heat. And I ended up doing very well that day, actually. I won that event. Turns out he was just a child, and I probably should have taken it down a notch. He ended up going through like several heats. But anyway, he's becoming this absolutely stellar competitor. And I mean, he'll be a world champion someday. And it's really cool to see that. The heritage, like his grandfather competes, his dad competes and all that. And, and so to your question about like how young is too young, like some of these guys, they're putting little axes in their kids' hands at like 2 years old. You're seeing them like at the competition, they like put a little log off to the side with the kids and they're just like whacking away at it. And
so I should get an axe for my 3-year-old?
Probably now. He's probably starting late, but if you can catch up if you start soon.
All right.
Yeah. I'll give you a good price on one. Yeah.
All right.
500.
Not too sharp.
It's got to be sharp. It's safe. I think it's probably safer if it's properly sharp, right?
That is absolutely true. I agree 100%. Maybe not with children, but I would say yes. You're absolutely right. It's a dull axe is far more dangerous.
I know that's definitely true with like kitchen knives. You're way safer if it's really sharp.
Oh yeah, it'll slice through and it'll stick into with an axe. It'll stick into the wood.
Explain that to Amber. I'd like to see that.
Oh, we have arguments about that at home.
I will say this though: if you're splitting firewood, unless you're doing kindling you want a sharp axe. But if you're just splitting firewood at home, you want a dull axe, because otherwise they just stick in the log and they get stuck. You want a dull axe that's kind of blunt and it'll just blow the piece apart.
Yeah, and it's a different like a splitting axe is a different shape as well, right?
Yeah, it's a little blunter. It's what we were talking about before. Yeah, you don't want it super thin or anything like that. Yeah.
Do you ever wonder if some of your skills will come in practical someday? Do you think? I kind of think that.
Society. I cannot possibly think of a single. Well, here, okay, the sawing for sure, chainsaw. I mean,
no, but what if there is? I mean, we joke about apocalypse, but societies do collapse.
Sure.
And I wonder if some of this fascination with some of these ancient arts and ancient skills is like kind of gnawing at the back of a lot of people's minds all at the same time.
Like preparatory. This is all prep.
Oh yeah,
could be. I mean,
Maybe,
it doesn't hurt to be prepared. I mean, why do you buy a fire extinguisher?
Fair enough?
If someone buys a fire extinguisher or a fire alarm, are they paranoid? Are they a conspiracy theorist?
Right.
No, they're prepared.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. Do I see this being practical? Probably not. But
no, let's hope not.
It would take an awful lot of work for me to like build something by hand, like a full structure. Yeah. Doing it this way.
Yeah.
But I mean, I'm in the process of building a little cabin, and I'm going to do a lot of it with. I'll buy some rough sawn lumber for sure, but I'm like for rafters and probably do the walls because it's not really efficient to chainsaw mill small dimension stuff. But I'm going to do all the posts and beams with a chainsaw and like trees off the lot,
and it'll outlast you.
Yeah, and this is super cool. Actually, you'll appreciate this. The sill logs for the cabin, they were. Basically recycled or repurposed. There was a wharf in Tiverton that they were fixing up. The Department of Highways were fixing up, and they were pulling these old beams off, and they were going to landfill them. And my uncle was working down there at the time, and he's like, "Oh, what are you guys doing with those beams?" And like, we're just, they're going to get hauled to the dump or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, my nephew might be interested in those." And So he reaches out and he's like, "Oh, do you want these couple of beams?" And I was like, I said, "Yeah, I mean, I do want them." But at the time I was living in Truro, I was like, we're talking about like a 4-hour drive and a trailer load. And it's like, realistically, I probably can't make that happen. So thanks, but don't worry about it. Anyway, this is a classic Digby moment. He calls me up. He's like, there's a guy here. He's a flat deck. He says he's going to haul him up there for you. He'll do it for a bottle of rum. I was like, done. So I show up my woodlot maybe a week later, and there's these beams laying there. Now he had told me they were 8x8s and they were around 16 feet long, and I was like, oh shit, that's really cool. I get there. Number one, they're 10x10s, which is big beams. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Number two, they were 20 feet long.
Wow,
massive timbers. So they were painted white, pressure treated, and basically salt cured for probably several decades on this wharf. So that is I've trimmed them up and I've notched them, and they are the sill logs for my cabin. So you talk about outliving; they'll outlive the freaking lot of us. Like it's a really cool connection to the, to that area too. Like that's really, to me, that's super cool. Yeah. That it's this part of the local community that otherwise, really would have just got thrown away. And it's like, oh man, that's super cool. Like they're used for something. And it cost me a bottle of rum.
That's good.
So it's a pretty sweet deal.
That is a pretty sweet deal.
That's a pretty sweet deal.
I remember you telling me about building a cabin.
Yeah. Because it's been a very slow process.
Yes.
I started it, and then when I was living in Truro, and then I ended up moving, and then bought a house, and the house needed a bunch of work, and it just life gets in the way. Weymouth.
You bought the house in Weymouth, the old the 1960s style place, right? I remember you telling.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you had bought it yet, but I think you were thinking about it last time we talked.
Oh man,
that's cool.
Oh yeah, it was. I was told by many people, like speaking of television, we should have connected with Home and Garden TV and done it.
That was a beautiful home.
Yeah, it was super impressive.
Capsule.
It was a time capsule. It was decorated really well.
You walk in
like 1967.
You'd expect to see Don Draper in the corner with an old fashioned or something.
Man, I thought really hard about hosting a party, a cocktail party, and then having, when people arrive, that you have a tray of cigarettes. Yeah. They just hand out.
Yeah.
It was the craziest place. Everything was red. Yeah. Except for the bedrooms were different colors. Like each one had a theme. A lot of cardinals everywhere.
Did you modernize it all?
Oh my God, yeah, it's all white now.
Oh, dude. I'm kind of happy,
Lord.
but I'm kind of sad.
Oh no, there was way too much carpet. So
allergens everywhere.
The green room, and when I say green room, this was a lime-ish green.
Avocado green, maybe?
Oh
that
no,
was big
no, that would be too subtle. No, this was
maybe avocado.
This will smack 70s. You in the smack. I'd say lime-ish. Yeah, so. Everything was green, including the shag carpet. Came with its own shag rake. You ever see a shag rake?
No.
That's for when you want to,
rake.
Give it a little toss.
Oh, literally just to rake your shag carpet.
Yeah. You want to
needs its own
freshen it up.
But it needs a comb over.
That's right. Yeah, everything's going one way. You want to pull it back. You want to change the vibe.
Like
the ceiling was green as well. You don't see that too often.
I have never seen that.
When we went to look at this place, that was the last room we went to. Rightfully so. It was a strong finish. And I remember walking into that room, and again, everything in every room had a ton of stuff, like ornaments and things. Like this house has been lived in for 50 years, and was just 50 years of like ornaments to match every color and all that stuff. Yeah. Walk into this green room, and the bedspreads are green, and then the everything matches, like green and white and whatever. And I remember just like slowly turning to leave the room, and in the corner there was this like 5-foot tall porcelain doll with like these dead eyes. And as soon as I saw it, I was like, Jesus Christ. Scared the shit out of me.
Large man with an axe. I'm getting scare easy.
I'm getting out of here. I'm done, and so long. And
so what'd you do with the doll?
Oh God, it was long gone after we. No, that was
you had to pay someone to get rid of it, or did you do it yourself?
It was funny. The negotiations were like well, I think I said like take a little bit more off the price and we'll deal with all the contents. And they're like, no, add more to the price and you can have the contents. Like, well, we are far apart on this, so you keep them. But I did
buy a dumpster.
I will. Yeah. I will say though, speaking of axes, a little bit of an obsession, obviously. But I had saw an axe hanging on the wall of the basement, and it was a broad axe. And I just felt like that was a bit of a sign for that place. And I was like, I really want that axe. I think that's important. So I remember saying to the real estate agent, I was like, can you ask them to leave that axe? And she's like, yeah, I can ask them. That's fine. And then I said, no, like I want that in the sales agreement to leave that axe.
But take the fucking
she's
doll.
She's like, you want this written into the agreement? I was like, yes. Okay. So she's like, that's the first time I've ever written that into an agreement. So I kind of joked that I bought like a, several $100,000 home axe that came with a house. That was
a very nice case.
Yeah, that was a really nice case. Yeah.
I think the last time you and I hung out, do you remember where we hung out last time?
Was it in a line at a COVID shot or something?
We were in a lineup.
Back in the day.
It was like pre-vaccine when you had to get like that stuff way
the
up
swab.
Your nose.
I think that was my first ever swab.
Into your brain.
Oh
my God.
Yeah.
So here we are standing outside waiting forever, 6 feet apart, talking about chopping trees and craft beer.
Yeah.
Then have our brain swab.
It's fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's it wiped you clean.
Yeah. It's almost like a lobotomy.
Oh man, that was so weird. What a weird time in our culture.
Yeah.
That was so bizarre. Like, come on in, and we're just gonna stick this up your nose. And like, well, this seems normal.
Everybody needs to stay apart, but everybody come together so we can see if you have COVID.
Oh, man. Can you all come to the same place inside this room?
All come together, and we'll have the same person touch you all and shove something up your nose.
And the person is basically wearing a hazmat suit.
Yeah. It was very bizarre.
It was post-apocalyptic kind of thing. Really.
It felt like it.
Yeah, it's like something. It was like something out of one of those apocalyptic movies. Really, I mean, how many times have you seen?
Oh
that?
yeah.
Remember when it first started? How many people watched? Was it what was the movie? Outbreak, and then there was
Outbreak. There was another one too.
Contagion.
Oh, and that does not have a happy ending.
No. It was bad. It was pretty accurate. There was a lot of parallels.
They didn't expect.
Hey, there was some Hollywood license in there taken for sure, like some artistic license. But
they made a lot of money. Netflix made a lot of money on that shit. They didn't expect that to be coming back up. Like The Grinch, you can count on every December that the views are going to go up. But I don't know if anyone really expected that.
It probably never get watched again.
People I don't want to watch it again.
Forget that. I don't think it happened.
Maybe they'll watch it in history class at school.
Maybe.
God.
Yeah. Oh man. But yeah,
wild times.
It doesn't hurt to be prepared for things, to have skills and mental and physical fitness. And something I think about a lot is we used to value older people in our society, right? Like the old hunter-gatherer tribes, like the elder had a lot of value because they knew how to do things.
Yeah, and they knew where things were. Like, this is, you need to go past that. No, that's where the deer hang out this time of year. That's where you've got to go.
And you can know these annual cycles, but then there's like 5, 10, 15, 20-year cycles. So, they hadn't seen a frost this time in so long, but an older person has seen that. Yeah. And we've lost a lot of that value. We haven't really respected older people like we used to because we have all this technology. And if you have a question, you can Google it. But I wonder how things would change. A lot of people neglect their grandparents in the nursing homes and don't really think there's a lot of that they can offer. But if Google goes down and our cell phones go down and the food grocery stores are finally empty, I bet you those old people would be pretty valuable again.
Oh yeah, it's so true. Like I mean, I think a lot of us are. I wouldn't say guilty of it. I mean, at some point too, there is a role, of course, for those nursing homes where people. They get to a point where they need full-time care or nursing and things like that. My grandmother's
that's a very new thing. Like
it is.
We talked about the poorhouses here a couple weeks ago, but those nursing homes are a very new thing. It used to be like you have 3 or 4 family or generations living in a household.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And you had that generational knowledge being passed down.
That's right.
And that was very important then because you were still planting a garden. You need to know all these things.
Oh, for sure.
And you would have the older people to help take care of the kids and stuff. Yeah.
And that experience and that knowledge. And we've lost that.
Oh, it's changed for sure. I know, so my grandmother's 92, but or 93, and she's in a nursing home. I saw her earlier this week, and I was asking her about. So the heritage on her side is Ukrainian. So we grew up eating pierogies and borscht and cabbage rolls and all these things homemade by her all the way through. And so I was asking her all about. Just making pierogies and
was she born
things.
there?
No, she was born in Canada. My grandfather was too, but their parents were both from Ukraine or Romania. So a lot of the dishes that we had and big family dinners, especially around the holidays, different holidays, whatever, would have some incorporation of Ukrainian dishes. And so I was just kind of asking her about pierogies. I'd started the last few years making her borscht recipe, which is super simple. It's actually like really good and really good for you. It's just like a vegetable soup, beet-based vegetable soup. It's really simple, but it's delicious. And so, and I've made it before and brought it to her. But I've never made her pierogies.
How did you judge it?
She loved it. No, I mean,
good to you. Yeah.
Hopefully, she was being honest. She's a pretty honest woman. She doesn't hold much back. So I think no, she'd have told me if it was trash.
People in their 90s
certainly
usually are.
Oh yeah, no, she wouldn't hold back. No, I mean, I matched her recipe.
Nice.
Spot on. Like I just followed it, and I've got a great little cookbook that's got some family recipes in it, and so I just followed it and turned out just like hers. Like it tasted a lot like hers, and it's one of those things that like really good the second day. Everything kind of absorbs and all that, and. But her pierogies are something that I haven't tried to tackle, and even her cabbage rolls, they're amazing. Like she's not fit to cook them anymore, but they're big undertakings, like hours and hours, painstaking hours of work, like boiling the cabbage and then rolling the and prepping all the inside, and then same with the pierogies. Her pierogi recipe was hilarious. It's in this book, and my sister was the one kind of putting this together, and she went and made pierogies with her one time, and she was sort of writing it down as they were going and asking her questions and all this. This is years ago. And she says, Nanny, how many pierogies does this recipe make? About the table full. Which is like her kitchen table,
Like what table?
Which is a very specific size. It's like, well, we need a little more. But the funny thing was, she estimated, she's like, it's about 102. Like what, within two. And sure enough, it made like 101 pierogies.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. I
She
heard this
had
old
it down.
story about a woman she was married, and she was making roast for her husband, and she cut the ends off the roast and put them on the side, and the husband was like, well, why do you cut the ends off the roast? She's like, I don't know, my mom did it. So they went to the mom and said, Mom, why did we cut the ends off the roast? She goes, I don't know, your grandmother always did. So they went to the grandma and said, why did you cut the ends off the roast? She goes, well, our roaster wasn't big enough.
Oh my God, they're still doing it.
Still doing it. Like sometimes we got to get these stuck in these traditions. But that made me think of that's the size of the table.
Yeah.
Table full.
The table full.
Table full, yeah. That's all you need.
That's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's great. Those beautiful old traditions. There's a lot of beauty and connection and all that kind of stuff, right? Yeah. I challenge our audience to find something old, find something from your heritage or from your family history, and tackle something difficult. Do something. Just do something that your ancestor would be like, them little shits are still at this. I think it's therapeutic. It's connection.
Oh, it is.
It's a difficult. Undertaking difficult things is a great thing. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
I was trying to teach myself how to. I don't really know how to sew, so I was trying to teach myself how to sew recently. Just sewing patches onto an old backpack that I'm going to take overseas, and just watching a YouTube clip, and sure enough, I know, and sure enough, like I was like, okay, there you go, sewed a patch, not too bad, all right. I mean, it's not great. Let's not kid ourselves. It's not great, but did it, and like, okay, it's one of those kind of old techniques that everyone used to know how to do, and now we kind of lost it, and it's like, that is a useful
thing.
Yeah.
My mother told me how to sew buttons on and everything back when I was a kid, and that's been actually super useful over the years, because I can sew back
buttons come off endlessly, constantly.
Yeah, exactly.
Freaking pain in the ass.
It is.
You want to fix this shirt for me?
Then we just throw it out and get another one, right? But our ancestors didn't have the luxury.
Yeah.
You had socks.
Like how many shirts at Frenchies are just missing a button?
Yeah,
probably a lot.
Yeah. We dispose of a lot of stuff.
Maybe I could make my fortune that way.
That's it. That's your fortune.
Rebuttoning shirts.
Buy them for $1, sell them for $2.
Cool. Well,
There's
maybe
worse ways to make a buck.
We've been going for about 2 hours now.
Oh my God.
Maybe let's just remind everybody about your current show.
Yeah, for sure.
And the upcoming show.
Absolutely. So, I mean, you can check out the Steel Timber Sports series on TSN. You can we live stream everything on YouTube anytime we have an event. So Kelowna, August, I think 17th, 18th is National Championship. So I'll be live streamed. You can see all these cool events and springboard and hot saw and all these things and wood chopping. So that's then end of September. I'm going to be hosting the Wild Axe Championship, the very first. It'll be the East Coast versus the West Coast.
Nice.
It's going to be an amazing event, and that will be on TSN this winter, and it's going to be pretty cool. And if you want to know more, then you can go check me out on Instagram. It's usually the best way to get me at Nova
Keep
Lumberjack.
an eye, because we're definitely going to do something.
The Hue and Brew.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Do something. Yeah.
I'm in.
That's cool. Yeah.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
Awesome.
That
Can't
sounds
wait.
like fun.
Yeah. Cool. Well, thank you, man.
Hey, thank you.
Appreciate it.
Hey, this is great.
Yeah,
Appreciate you
awesome.
having me.
Thanks. Thanks, guys. Thank you for listening. Please like and subscribe, or if you'd like to support us, please visit Refound Brewing Company at 573 Main Street, Kingston, or buy our product wherever it's available, including our Foolishly Optimistic IPA at your local NSS. Thank you.